Yeah, that's the leanest number 4 we've seen. No recognitions, proclamations, or president. I got you. Well, it's okay. True.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you this evening. We'll go ahead and get today's meeting underway. This is a regular business meeting of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners on June 17, 2024 at 5:01 p.m. If I could have everybody stand for the pledge to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And at this time, we take a brief moment of silence. This is for individual for individual prayer, reflection, or meditation. We take this time to honor and remember our first responders and the men and women in our military who keep us safe and protect our freedoms at home and abroad. All right, thank you. Just a few additions and deletions. Let's see, we have a modification of item 7B on the agenda. It was board ratification of a local state of emergency due to drought and a threat of wildfire and emergency administrative order prohibiting certain outdoor activities. That includes an extension. Also, modification of 7I, consideration of the resolution and a first amendment to the public transportation grant agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation. The attachments were not available at the time the agenda was posted, but they were added on 6/12 and posted to the website. And also there was an addition, item 7J, consideration of fiscal year 24-25 application to the commission for the transportation disadvantage for the annual trip and equipment grant. This application deadline is amended to June 30th. A few announcements. County offices will be closed on Wednesday, June 19th for Juneteenth National Independence Day. That's a federal holiday celebrated annually to commemorate the ending of slavery in the United States. Also, on Monday, June 24th at 6 p.m., join us for what we're calling Pizza, Pastries, and Planning, and that's to discuss our comprehensive plan and planning for future development in Flagler County. This is a great opportunity for residents to contribute to how we plan for the future of Flagler County and to directly work with staff and our consultants on concerns and desires for the community. The meeting will be held at the Emergency Operations Center, which is directly behind me in Building 3. Also, county offices will be closed on Thursday, July 4th and Friday, July 5th for the 4th of July Independence Day holiday. Let's see. We also want to invite everybody to flaglercounty.gov to view our transparency dashboard if you haven't been there yet. It's a great portal with a lot of information. We have citizens advisory boards that are open. You can view them at that page and learn more about the different openings. We have a portal for aircraft noise abatement, and that is to submit concerns or to view and to submit concerns and review the report map. We also have one for feral hogs and for drainage maintenance and many more topics on there. Our next regular scheduled meeting is Monday, August 5th at 9 a.m. Oh, you're right. We do have one in July. That's after July. Very good. We have one meeting in July. I don't remember the date of that one, though. Instead of two, we have one meeting in July. Do you know that one, Ms. Petito?
It should be the 15th.
15th, July 15th.
It's an evening, 5 p.m.
Thank you.
If it's
Good
approving,
catch.
I was listening.
Good catch, Commissioner Sullivan. All right, there are no recognitions, proclamations, or presentations this evening. And with that, we will move to community outreach. This is a 30-minute time period that's been allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair. So at this time, we'll open the meeting up for community outreach.
Change in Sealed Yude, Plantation Bay. Several issues. One, I just want to make sure, don't take this out of my 3 minutes. I asked that 2 items be pulled from the consent agenda. I hope they're being pulled. 7I and J. Okay. You took it out of my time. All
Can you
right.
repeat the numbers?
7I and J.
I and J, okay.
Okay. The one has to do with the Kimberly Horn, the FDOT, the drainage thing, and the other is the money for the airport.
7G, I think, though. I think
They changed.
7G.
G, right, G.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for your time. I am holding here a zip drive that I got today from Jerry Cameron. This zip drive has the 2-hour conversation that Jerry Cameron had in the presence of Scott Simon, John Bay from the Health Department, someone from the Sheriff's Office, and the 2 current buyers of the old Dixie. I wouldn't call it a hotel. I'd call it a junkyard. 2 hours, 2 hours. They were asked, do you realize the county is not supplying you water? Do you realize you do not have to close on the sale tomorrow? Do you realize you will have to pay the county $250,000? I will make this available to anybody who wants to hear it, and I want to get it to the judges. And through the chair, can I ask you if either the magistrate has issued a written ruling or Judge France has issued a written ruling, because this hotel is not only the most disgusting thing on the planet, I am suggesting that the commission order Heidi Petito to fire Adam Engel and anybody else who was negotiating with the owners of this disaster, which is costing us over $35,000 a year in lawyers' fees, and sheriff going there every night, and 2 other people can't be here with me. And yet Adam Engel is negotiating with these people to come up with a new plan 3.5 years later, while the 6,000 of us have to look at this. We have no shopping center. We have no park. We have to go to, never mind that. It is a disgrace. There are drug deals going on there. And Adam is working with these people. And they're actually trying to buy water from the owner of the gas station and making him phony promises. Now, how can the county even consider doing business with someone who was 3 years in arrears of paying $250,000 bond, who was left a dump and a disastrous building which violates every statute, and yet Adam is negotiating with them? Would you do business with anybody who can't come up with money in 3 years, who can't even pay their taxes? Tax certificates were sold. They also own the crap across the street, the storage facility. They have no water either. You're dealing with a mob here. You need to get this hotel knocked down, and next time we'll have a bigger crowd. And thank you for your time. Anybody who wants this, I will be glad to get a copy. It's a 2-hour conversation that Jerry Cameron had. I'm sure, Mr. Hadid, you would be thrilled to see this.
You're gonna, if you could leave it with the clerk.
Oh, I can't leave it. I have to transcribe it to my computer first, and then I'll make one for the clerk.
Well, it's
This is
public
the
record
only-
now, so
Yes, but I haven't put this on my computer. I can give it to the clerk. If I give it to the clerk, I have nothing. I just got it 2 hours ago. I'll make it available. I will make it available and put it in the file.
She can,
Mr.
she
Hadid.
can tender the flash drive to the clerk's office. They can make a duplicate of it and return to her the original. And that's how,
When
We
will I get my
accomplish-
original back?
as soon as they download it and make a copy.
How long is that going to take? This is my personal property. I didn't even have to show this to you. I said I had it. And I said I will make it available. I have the original from Jerry Cameron. You should have had it yourself if you were a good attorney.
We already do.
thank you. How do you, I mean, I'm at a loss here, so.
I will make this available to the county attorney and county commissioner. I left a message with Sean on his voicemail. He did not tell me I had to leave a copy with the clerk.
Okay,
If he had said so, I would have asked my husband to put it on the computer.
all right, thank you.
But I left a message with Sean. He never called.
Thank you. Next public speaker, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
which 2 items did she pull?
G and I.
E and I.
That was Ms. Hude's request.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. I have a couple musings, rhetorical questions here. I know the governor and the budget just vetoed quite a few bills, including Flagler County's $10 million for septic to sewer conversions and Benell's water system project and water treatment project. I mean, we keep hearing how much money the state has, and yet these are vetoed from us. There are some projects that are nice to have, but it seems to me something like this is something that we should have, and how and why he vetoed them is just a rhetorical question. What I'm here about basically is, I know there's a burn ban in effect, and I wish to talk about something similar, but not the same burn ban. I would like to see if you have a workshop to form a resolution. What I've noticed recently in clearing the land over there on Roberts Road for the properties that they're building houses over there, et cetera. When they come in, the developers or builders, LLCs, landowners, whatever you wish to call them, clear the land, they cut the trees, use them, take the trees out, and then they stump the land. They take the tree stumps up by dozer, pile them up, and they burn them. And I do not want this considered as part of the burn ban. 50 years ago, when I did this for a construction company, you would stump the land, push the stumps up into a pile, dump diesel fuel on there because it's more oily and it would continue to burn. And these stump piles would burn for days. And I noticed coming over the bridge, especially over on Roberts Road, the stump pile burned for days, if not weeks. I don't go there every day, but it burned for days, creating pollution, worsening the air index in the area. The people who live in there have to smell that. How do you go in your backyard, on your lanai, or in your pool when these are burning? I've seen this happen over on Royal Palms where they're developing. I've seen developers do it on Route 1 up by Matanzas. When they have hundreds of acres, they just push up a pile of stumps and burn it, and it burns and creates air pollution. What I would like to see this county for our citizens, ban them. When a developer comes in and clears one lot, they clear cut the trees, they take the trees away, they put the stumps in another truck, and it takes it to wherever they salvage it and chip it. Stop them from burning these stumps. They burn for days, they create air pollution, they raise the bad air index for the people who live near the area. This is just them being cheap. They don't want to pay to haul the stumps out to be chipped. They want to save a couple dollars, a couple $100, maybe a couple thousand. But when you're building hundreds of houses, that's just a drop in the bucket. So I'm going to bring this up to this city of Palm Coast tomorrow at their meeting. I'd like to see a permanent ban prohibiting builders, developers, whatever you wish to fill in the blank, to stop them from burning stumps when they're clearing land like that, and just take it out like they normally would. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
I'm Steve Davis. I live on Ocean Shore Boulevard on the ocean. I wanted to speak about the Amelia Island MSBU and the MSBU under consideration on our barrier island. The oceanfront properties on Amelia Island are mostly condos and are the only properties in the MSBU that receive direct property protection from the dune and beach restoration, because there is no threat of dune breach, inundation, or velocity zone intrusion from the ocean. The properties behind the dune do not directly benefit from the dune beach restoration. The properties to the west in Amelia Island MSB are threatened instead by inland flooding from the ICW from storm surge entering the inlet to the north, Satilla River, and the inlet immediately to the south, the St. Mary's River. This inland flooding is not reduced by the dune beach restoration. The improved and enlarged recreational beach is a benefit to all nearby properties, even to the west of the county and to tourists beyond the county. The barrier island properties do not have a special responsibility to provide recreational beach to the rest of the county or to tourists. The improved and protected wildlife habitat is not a local benefit. Habitat protections is a state and federal mandate. This should not be the special responsibility of the barrier island properties, and assessing them is unfair. In Flagler Beach, A1A is the protected upland development, the real protected property. Florida DOT has demonstrated their willingness to go to great lengths and expense to protect A1A. There are no oceanfront houses or condos in Flagler Beach similar to the oceanfront houses and condos on Amelia Island. The houses to the west side of A1A receive protection only because the highway is protected. Without A1A, there would be no project. Because there is no threat of dune breach, inundation, velocity intrusion from the ocean, the properties on Central Avenue and the west side of Flagler Beach do not similarly benefit from the dune beach restoration. The properties to the west of Flagler Beach are threatened similarly by inland flooding from storm surge in the ICW. This inland flooding is not reduced by the dune beach restoration. From Jungle Hut north, there is a threat of dune breach causing inundation and velocity intrusion into large neighborhoods, flooding large parts of the neighborhoods. All of the houses in the north benefit from the dune beach restoration. There are many places where the oceanfront properties stayed high and dry during Matthew, but the inland properties flooded. I hope that you all consider assessing all properties in an MSBU equally, and I hope you consider an MSBU in the north of only the unincorporated property on the barrier island.
Thank you.
David Eckert, Kelly Del Sur. A parallel option to the full barrier island MSBU is possible and attractive. The largest achievable this year MSBU may be the northern 10 miles of the barrier island. If Beverly Beach and Flagler Beach wish to join, they would be welcome re-establishing the full barrier island MSBU. In fact, it would be very helpful if Flagler Beach did join the MSBU, establishing a system of assessments that are appropriate for their area. The maximum benefits for the 18 miles were $10 million a year from the consultant that presented. $7 million per year of the benefits were chosen as a starting base for your calculations on the full barrier island. If we created this easily attainable 10 northern mile, the benefits are proposed at $4 million a portion of the $7 million. $2 million to be raised from the parcel owners and $2 million from the county's offer of a 50% match by use of ad valorem or tourist tax or other general revenue. Bridge tolls, parking fees, beach tag purchase can also be considered. A better benefit analysis along the lines that Steve just went through can be done, fitting the conditions in the northern 10 miles. It could show equal benefits for all parcels as floodwaters have extended across the barrier island north of Malacompra Road in recent storms. A single zone is expected to be all that is needed north of Malacompra. South of Malacompra, there are large associations that should participate in the analysis. These entities have already maintenance assessment authority within their properties, which runs with the land. Those governing documents run with the land. FEMA flood certificates, the building code of each structure that was built, government flooding modeling, and specific habitat studies will make the assessment criteria much more reliable than the consultant study that was given to you previously. The best county outreach program possible is to send to each of the 7,000 parcel owners in the northern 10 miles an estimate of their assessments on their specific parcels. Each parcel owner would study the alternatives and assess the amounts they would be willing to accept or reject to gain the benefits of the shoreline maintenance program. Their return surveys would form a portfolio of petition documents, legal petition documents. The BOCC, county staff, and community associations are urged to take up this northern 10-mile MSBU proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. For those that just came in, this is the public outreach section, so if you have public comments on the consent agenda or items that are not on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we will move on. All right, commissioners, you have consent in front of you. Is there any comments on any of the consent items that you wanted to state before we review them?
Just a couple comments on 7F. That's a great victory for the landowners, the county commission, and the contractor. They solved a lot of problems with aprons onto driveways and elevation issues, and they got them all done. It's a nice thing to see. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Pennington. Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, on 7G, it's a pretty significant forward step for Flagler County in that it'll be a brand new public park in a critical area, and we all want to protect as much as the environment as we can. So I just would comment, I think it's significant. It's fairly complicated. I don't know if anybody was here to brief on it, but I just wanted to point it out to people. I don't necessarily agree we should pull it, but I think it's a big step forward on the environmental side of things.
It's been pulled.
Well, I don't think, I think.
We haven't officially yet.
Yeah,
but
we haven't done it officially.
It's been requested.
But anyway, I'm willing to, I think there's good information there, and it is a step forward.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Commissioner O'Brien? All right. Commissioner Hanson, did you want to go ahead and officially pull those two? Ms. Yude had asked those, so I'll do it if you,
No.
okay. I'll pull 7G and 7I. And
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of 7G and 7I.
thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Motion by Commissioner Hanson, second by Commissioner Sullivan. So all those in favor of consent, with the exception of 7G and 7I, signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. 7G is consideration and approval of a local agency program agreement with the Department of Transportation for the Bulow Creek Headwaters Regional Park. I'll open that up for a brief discussion.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Hamid Tabassian, County Engineer. Appreciate the opportunity, and we are very pleased to have this in front of you. We have been a long process since we selected the consultants for this work, and today we have the local agency program agreement with the FDOT providing federal funds in the amount of $1,579,662 for planning and design of the Bulow Creek Headwaters Park, which is it's a 1,000-acre site that is a preserved area south of State Road 100 between Bulow Creek and on the west side, the Old Kings Road. This area is planning on to have a recreational trail through this area, and which would connect to the northern Graham Swamp Trail and the Lehigh Trail and the pedestrian bridge that has been constructed would make a whole lot more sense and would be utilized to basically connect approximately 10 miles of the trail all the way from the Palm Coast Parkway to the south end of the Bulow Creek Park. We are going to embark on the planning phase of this project, which is going to take approximately 18 months. To do that, we'll have public meetings, public outreach to come up with a master plan for the park. And we would come back, brief you on the master plan and evaluating different alternatives. The intention here is to enhance the preserved area, the 1,000-acre site. Any enhancement of the area that is needed and basically protecting what we have. So it is at the end of years from now, this is going to be a great park and a jewel for the Flagler County. Once the planning is completed, then we'll embark on the design, and currently we are seeking the construction funding from the Sun Trail program and also the Transportation Alternative Program that DOT got. So we are hopeful that in 3 years, we'll be in the construction phase of this project. And also for the design, this local agency program agreement that you're considering tonight also provides for the full design of the project. So we have our consultant, Kimley Horn and Associates, that we have negotiated the planning phase for the project. The engineer, Mr. Chris Town, is here. He's from the Gainesville office, and we are really looking forward to get on this project. And in 6 months or so, the initial phase is data collection, and in that time, we'll be back here and present to you what we have and get your input.
Right, thank you.
Thanks.
Is Chris in the audience, you said? Okay,
Yes, sir.
there he is. Thank you. Just wanted to say thank you for being here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or not, or just, okay. Questions from the commission?
He's
Okay.
coming up.
I mean, you drove from Gainesville, so.
Yes, sir. My name's Chris Town, Kimley Horn. I came here mostly today just to show how important this is for us, for the county, and that we appreciate working with you all, and we look forward to this project. So.
Thank you. Questions?
I just had one more comment.
sir.
And that is, you know, when you're up here in an elected position, you're only here for a short period of time. Things like this go on forever, and they take a long time to get going. For instance, the bridge that I was always very supportive of. You know, you can make a big splash by sticking your foot in a bucket of water, but as soon as you pull your foot out, it's gone. These kind of projects go on for a long time, and will be, our children and our grandchildren will have these parks, the trails will be connected, and I think it's part of what makes Flagler County a great place to live.
Yeah, great. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jane Gentile, you, and I want to correct Mr. Hadid. Under community outreach, nothing is on the agenda. I don't have to give you anything. On this item, I think the plan is great. I agree with Commissioner Sullivan. I have two concerns. Why is the county only going to Kimberly Horn? Kimberly Horn took thousands and hundreds of thousands before Jerry came along, God bless him, and stopped the water project in Plantation Bay. My concern is, on a big project like this, I read the backup. I didn't see that any of the bids were even solicited. So I love the project, but I would like this tabled. And secondly, since I'm getting on in years, which I try to deny, I'd like to make sure that such a big park has handicapped access. There are a lot of people who have physical handicaps, not just because they're crippled, but because, like me, they have COPD, and every day it gets harder and harder. No matter what you do, you find yourself falling apart. And if we're going to spend all this money, it should be accessible to everyone. And I didn't see anything in here about any handicap plans. And I certainly would like this tabled, at least until you can get an explanation, is why weren't other bids solicited? This is a major project. We live in a big area, and if the engineer can come back and tell you, but they should have let you know, they're working with this firm. I don't think this is the way to do business. Or either come and say nobody else wanted to bid on the project. And I do definitely want to see handicap designs for people who are handicapped in every which way. And I miss Faith so much. It was so much nicer to look at her than him.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right, so just to address a couple of issues, this project has gone through the request for qualifications. That's the process this went through. There were various bidders that submitted and were reviewed by staff and ranked in order. And Kimberly Horn was selected through that process. It was all publicly done, as is all of our procurement. So that process probably a good 6 months or more ago. And then there's a thing called the Federal Americans with Disability Act, and that mandates that accessibility is put into every single design project. All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, any other public comment before I move on? All right. All those in favor of the,
Mr. Chairman,
I need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item 7G.
Second.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. 7I, consideration of a resolution and a First Amendment to the Public Transportation Grant Agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for the funding for the construction of the General Aviation Terminal Facility at Flagler Executive Airport. Mr. Seeger, did you want to have a brief summary and talk about how successful you've been in getting funds for this project?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Roy Seeger, Director of Flagler Executive Airport. Tonight, you have in front of you the First Amendment to the Public Transportation Grant Agreement. This is like I said, this is the First Amendment. Back, if you recall, back on June 3rd, the board approved a PTGA an amount of $3,303,947. The FDOT found more money and asked if we could get this back on the board, and they have given us another $500,000 towards this project for a total of $3.8 million. Also, you're all aware, this project was actually designed a few years ago, back in 2020, but we put it on hold in order to build T-hangars. Now T-hangars are all done. All the payments done on the airport. This is the final project that we need to do at the airport to bring it to be a world-class executive airport. So also, too, you're all aware that the board, actually the airport or the county was approved through the State General Revenue Fund of another $5 million for this project as well.
Right.
So we have all the money we need to get started on this project.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're
Any
welcome.
questions?
No, I think it's good. I think moving along.
All right.
It's a jewel in the county.
Thank you.
We'll open up for public comment. Anybody that wishes to speak on this item?
Thomas, I'll go home after this. Change until you. I think an airport terminal is great. I'm looking at the backup on this, and it clearly says that in order for the county to get the money, Exhibit E, it's in your backup, compliance with laws and rules. Leanne, I know you've been working on this. The agency hereby certifies, with respect to the project, it will comply within its authority with all applicable current laws and rules of the state of Florida and local governments which may apply to the project, including but not limited to the following current versions of each: local government requirements, Florida statutes, local zoning land use ordinance, local comprehensive plan. If we're going to have a welcome terminal, I am all for it. I think it's great. Do you think we need a welcome terminal for flight schools? Shouldn't, now that we're getting a welcome terminal, is the perfect opportunity to get rid of all the flight schools and bring in fixed-based operators, corporations, their executives, they'll fly them in. We'll have a terminal to entertain them. I think this is wonderful. This is the best thing that I heard. However, it also says that in order to get this, I don't think that this county or Roy Seeger can justify a terminal for flight schools who use small planes that contaminate our area with lead versus jets that don't use this lead and take off. I got a phone call from Gina Weiss. She's up in New York, on her home in Rockaway, which is 15 minutes from Kennedy Airport. They don't hear the planes taking off. Why? because they're jets. This terminal is wonderful. It is your opportunity to shut down these flight schools and welcome fixed-based operators with a new terminal where you can have restrooms, you might even have a couch where someone wants to rest. This is what we need. We need to say, Flagler, we want your business. We want you to bring your corporate jets here. We want you to visit us. We want you to move here. These flight schools, we don't know who they are. You people get inundated with 55,000 emails a day from Gina. You know, she's more passionate than I am. I don't blame her. I think this is disgraceful. So please get rid of the flight schools. Don't accept the terminal with the flight schools. Flight schools don't need terminals. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve 7I.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. We will move on to our general business items. First up is item 8A. This is adoption of a resolution to vacate a portion of the plat in the town of Espanola subdivision. Mr. Mangold, good evening, sir. How are you today?
Good. How are you? Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director. Don't see the remote. Oh,
On the
okay.
clicker.
This request is, as you see on the graphic in front of you, and also within your staff report, this is to vacate the 12-foot alleyway in Block 3 and the portion within Block 4, along with the portion of Palm Avenue between Block 3 and 4, according to the Town of Espanola plat. You can see the depiction here in red of that area that's to be vacated with this request as made by the petitioners who are adjacent lot owners to the subject property. As you can see here, there are no roadways that are constructed within those platted right-of-ways. These exist on paper only. So they are contiguous owners, as I mentioned. Vacating does not affect the ownership or right of access of persons owning other parcels, so that if you do this, you're not taking away someone else's access rights. And we also have all of our utility providers have provided consents. You had those within the backup that you have. Two other graphics I think were important. These are also displayed, included within your backup. You have that blue portion that's showing those areas that have already been dedicated prior to this request. The area in pink then showing those portions that are improved where the roadways are located, and then highlighted in green here on this one shows that present request. This was part of the applicant's petitioner's application that they submitted, showing kind of how that roadway makeup is located within the Town of Espanola plat, what's been previously vacated, what's included within this vacation request. And then more specifically, the survey that shows this area in greater detail. With that, I've got three options available to the board approval of the vacation request, and that would be approving the resolution for the vacation, as I mentioned, denying the request, and if you do deny it, please place reasons for denial on the record. And then the third option would be to continue the request time and date certain for whatever cause. With that, I'll close, await any questions or comments, submit my report for the record. I don't believe the applicant is present, but or petitioners, but if there's any questions, I'll do my best.
Great.
Just
Yes, sir.
you just didn't mention it, but I read it in the backup. So the vacated land gets divided right down the middle.
It does.
And goes to the adjacent land.
It does. Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Mr. Mangle? All right, at this time, I'll open it up for public comment.
Do you want to do a motion?
I can take a motion now if you want.
Motion to approve item 8A.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sullivan, seconded by Commissioner Hanson. All right, we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the public wishing to address the commission on this item? Sir, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Hall. I'm one of the petitioners that put this together. Just want to make myself present in case there were any questions or concerns.
I appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back. We have a motion by Commissioner Sullivan, seconded by Commissioner Hanson. We'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 8B, consideration of the adoption of a resolution to create an economic development impact fee grant program. This is requested by Amy Lukasik, Tourism Director, and Dolores Key, our Economic Development Manager, and presented by Mr. Salinas.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Yeah, I'll be presenting this economic development incentive. This item that I'll be presenting covers two items, covers 8B and 8C. I can stop when I'm done with the first incentive and continue, or I can just do the presentation and open it up for.
I'm okay with doing the whole thing. Okay.
I'll go over the whole
Both items,
presentation.
yes, sir.
So we have here, the agenda for, we're going to be covering here is an overview of the development incentives. These items were brought to the board on January 22nd. There were 9 items that were provided as potential incentives to consider. The board gave direction to staff to work on 5 out of those 9 items. And 2 of those 5 items that we'll be talking about today require board approval through a resolution. So incentives for economic development may come in from multiple sources. As you can see here, federal, state, and local governments. They exist to help assist, attract, retain, and promote business environment. They may be established by statute or may be established by local government. And they include rebates, incentives, grants, and loans. There's multiple items that may be considered for economic development incentives. These incentives that we're talking about today from economic development are part of our strategic plan under the economic vitality pillar. Through this process and resolution, the board will be able to complete objective EV 2.2, which is research, develop, and implement options for economic development incentive program. So if the board considers these items that we are going to be presenting today, you'll be able to check off the box here for EV 2.2. This is also a slide that was included last time in the first presentation. As you can see, the labor force here in Flagler County is 49,650. 28,000 of those are working within the county, and about a little bit over 21,000 or 43% of that labor force either leaves the county or works for someone else outside of the county. So it's about 43%. So the items to consider today, we had 9, as I mentioned earlier. 5 of those are the ones that the board wanted us to continue to move forward. We're ready to work on 3 out of the 5 to present to you today. The first one is a fast tracking permitting system. That's going to be implemented at a staff level through a standard operating procedure. So growth management is working on that, and that'll be available as part of the incentives process. The item number 5 and number 6 are the ones that we'll be talking about today. One is the impact fee grant program, and the other one is a REV grant program, which stands for Recapture Enhanced Value. And those both items require a resolution approved by the board in order to implement these 2 items. So what is an impact fee grant program? So this item is actually provided by statute, through 219-075. This program requires board action, as I mentioned, to implement. The program is permitted through that particular statute. After several years, individual accounts may acquire significant value on these impact fees. So what we're talking about here is taking the interest that is gained from these impact fees and taking those and allocate those as incentive for that particular to offset that same impact fee. So if we have a transportation impact fee fund, whatever interest that is generated in that fund, that bucket, can only be used for offsetting transportation impact fees as an economic development incentive. Here's a table representing this grant program. As I mentioned earlier, it needs to be adopted through resolution. There's no general fund impact to adopting this resolution because it's based on the interest and the surplus that is generated through the impact fee. The next incentive is the Rev Grant incentive program. And this is very similar to a tax increment finance program, or what's commonly used in local governments and the CRAs, where you freeze the base of a particular property and then any improvements on those, in this particular case, new construction or redevelopment of a non-residential property, anything above that number that is frozen can be granted as an incentive. And there's multiple escalations that takes the way it takes place. And I'll explain that in a minute. And the applicant must invest a minimum of $10 million in order to be eligible for this grant. And it has to be, or the project would include light industrial warehousing, logistic development projects. What we're putting here in the resolution is to have at least 30 persons to be employed, and that it pays those employees 125% of the Flagler County annual wages. It also, through this program, the ad valorem taxes are applied to the real property and also to the tangible personal property. And tangible personal property is furniture, fixture, and equipment that the investor is bringing to the county. So here's a representation of what that annual Flagler County average wage is, and the 125% that any of these prospectors need to meet is they have to hire employees at least $58,695, or an hourly rate of $28.21. So the way the Rev Grant works is that you take that base rate, and like I said, you freeze that base rate, and any investment above that becomes available for a grant. What we're proposing here is that between year 1 and year 5, you can take 75% of that increase and allow this a company to receive that as a grant. And then from year 6 to year 10, it'll come down to 50% of that investment. And then after year 11, the taxes will be whatever the taxes are, 100% paid to the county. So here we put a table together of what that would look like on an investment of $10 million. So you can see on the far left, 1 through 5 is 75% of $10 million at a millage rate of 8.05547. If we in this example say it's going to be an $805,000 assessed value on this investment, the Rev Grant that would go to this organization would be $604,000. The county will be collecting the base rate plus $201,000. The second year, the same, very similar, $241,000. After year 5, the recipient of the grant would be will have a discount of $402,000, and then the county will go up to $625,000. On this example, the assessed value, I just set it up at 5% year-over-year increase, because homestead is 3% and commercial is up to 10%. So we just picked a conservative number of 5%. So by the end of this investment, year 11, the county will be assessing or the property appraiser will be assessing this property based on that 5% increase year over year, $1.3 million. The grant will go down to zero that year, and then the county will be collecting the $1.3 million in assessed value that was increased due to this investment. So this is a table representation of what that is. Tax increment grant is also requires board action through a resolution. And on the description is kind of the same steps that I just talked about. So the next steps are for the board to consider a resolution establishing a REV grant program for potential investors in industrial programs, and also to establish an impact fee grant program to also incentivize potential investors.
Mr.
Any
Chair?
question?
Yes, sir.
Questions?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Well, first off, these incentives are not out of the ordinary. They're used, from my experience, all around the country.
That's
in-
correct.
In different localities. Do you know if the city of Palm Coast has similar incentives in their toolbox?
I do not know if they have them. I know that they're working on some incentive programs. I know other cities in Florida and counties have similar incentives going on.
And the vision here is they're tools that we can use when projects come to us as we start to talk to different prospects, correct?
That is correct, Commissioner.
And even if we approve them as a tool, they're non-binding on any future commissions because individually they would have to come to us for consideration for a specific project, correct?
Each project will be coming to the board for approval. This is just letting the prospectors know that the county is forward-looking and have these programs for them to come to our county.
Right. It may make us or help us to get on a short list for consideration on a project that we might not be on if we didn't have these kind of things that we can list as possibilities, correct?
Correct, you're correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Right. And again, the reason we're looking at this is we don't want to be in the business of giving people money up front before they build their building or bring in employees. All these incentives, and these are a little different than what we can do right now. And as we said, as Brian said, these are used in various places. So we're just trying to set that up to give us a bigger bag of ways of incentivizing businesses to come to the county. And there's really, what the other side of this is, there's really no dollar limit on this up front. In other words, the bigger the project, the more it's going to be valuable. So I think it's a good idea. We all got briefed on this earlier, and these are the ones I guess we have to approve because of the way the taxes work.
You're correct, Commissioner. And just going back to this particular slide, where we have about 21,000 residents going out of the county or working remote outside of the county, tools like these will be attracting new businesses, new companies to come here and ease their way into introducing their business here or their investment here through some of these grant programs.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hanson or Pennington, questions?
I think we have to approve them separately.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would just add, I think, right when we workshopped this and did our research, to the point Commissioner O'Brien was making, when we compared ourselves with others, it was obvious we were on the deficient side of any incentives available at all. And we did that research. It was a great process that we went through, and
Right.
being able to have those early discussions about various different packages or incentives, and then narrowing them then down, and then letting staff flesh them out and bring them back to us. So
Yeah, we appreciate
it's
your
a
support, yeah.
model process for
Yeah.
us to follow. All right.
Thank you.
Does anyone want to float a motion before I go to public comment?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 8B, establishing Economic Development Impact Fee Grant Program.
Second?
A motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. And at this time, we'll take it to the public for public comment on this item. Anybody wishing to address? Oh, yes, sir.
Well, not public. Is this on? On? Yeah, okay. In sitting here, I scanned the recapture of enhanced value. There are two technical errors that I want to make sure to correct. We don't need to do it right now. You can go ahead and adopt it. I don't want you to upset the momentum that you've achieved, and we'll bring back the resolution. This would be on the REV, bring it back with the correction so that you can see it, so that it'll be an amended resolution that I'll put on the agenda the next time. Unless you want me to go through the technical errors in it.
That's the next one, though.
That's the next one, right?
Oh, you're not on the REV?
We're doing
No,
8B.
doing 8B right now.
Okay. Make mine a footnote then.
Okay, I'll remember. Good evening.
Good evening, Robin Paletta, Halifax Plantation. I sounds like a wonderful tool to have in the development toolkit. My question is, what areas of the county would these light industrial logistical centers be placed or anticipated to be placed because of infrastructure questions that I have? We all know that I-95 100 interchange is very busy. There's no place to put it up by Palm Coast for access because anything going on the west side of US 1 would have to traverse the parkway, which is already congested. Unless you're talking about the interchange area, perhaps north of Bunnell with I-95. Is that an area that we could entice people to bring those projects in? Or are you talking about Old Dixie and I-95 area? Maybe it'd be a good replacement for the hotel. I don't know. But I'm just asking, where does the county see the possibility of these projects being placed? Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess, not to get into the back and forth, but we do, between the airport and other commercial and industrial zone projects, we also targeted South US 1, where we were going to go with the extension of utilities. So that to name a few. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber. Just wanted to share that we support both B and C. Obviously, we're here talking about the impact fee side of things. Very important point that Jorge brought up, which I think is, that economic vitality strategic plan. We've talked about this in the past. This is an opportunity to begin to achieve some of the goals that we've outlined there, and the Chamber supports the county's economic development plan. It is allowed by Florida statute. Two of the big things that I wanted to bring up was the county allows me to be a part of the Jacksonville, USA economic development partnership that we have. And when I sit in the room with Dolores and listen to these other communities just talk about all the opportunities and options that they have, this to me really is about being competitive. I don't think that we're doing everything that we can do to be competitive in this space. And it's pretty evident when you sit in that room and listen to the project after project after project that they have lined up. This is a step in the right direction. And I think it's worth mentioning the 92-8, right? When we talk about where does government get its money from, 92% residential versus 8% commercial. This is incentivizing more commercial to occur in Flagler County, which I think is important. And I think it's also important to mention, and the other speaker brought it up, that this isn't all the, or one of the council or commissioners brought it up, that it's not all the county's responsibility, right? Palm Coast needs to do some stuff, the county needs to do some stuff, but this is going to help us become more competitive. It's going to help us begin to achieve those strat plans. And the last thing I would say is that the passage of these two and then the fast track permitting, but really we need the other two items on that list as well, which had to do with the Industrial Development Revenue Authority and bond. So I know those aren't on the docket for today, but this is a great start and I urge you to vote in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner O'Brien. I'll call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. This time, we will entertain a motion for item 8C, which is create a recaptured enhanced value grant program.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hadid has made a comment on this, and so before we do the motion, I'd just like to clarify what what you recommend we do right now on this.
I was, because I don't want to disturb the momentum. You can pass this. These are not fatal, but these are errors that need to be corrected. So I will bring them back on this one as an amended resolution, which shows the amendment. And for those that want to know why, there'll be a report. So I would recommend you go ahead and approve this, knowing that I'm going to be coming back with an amended resolution next board meeting.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
I don't see this as super time sensitive, so I don't have any problem waiting till the next meeting when we have the final version. I don't think, if there's some deal that's not going to happen, you don't have to tell us what it is, then we could approve it today, but if it's just one more meeting, it's up to you guys.
I would recommend that you just move forward with, as it is right now, with the understanding that it's just a little technical thing that legal will fix and will bring forward. We don't have another meeting for another month, and there is some stuff that we're working on, so.
Make a motion to approve item 8C, consideration of the adoption of a resolution to create a recaptured enhanced value grant program.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Pennington, seconded by Commissioner Hanson. All right, at this time, I'll open it up for public comment on this item. All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you for that. We have item 8D next. It's consideration to endorse new legislation regarding the PACE program, and this is requested by our county attorney, Mr. Al Hadid.
Oh, okay. All right, you are familiar with this program. You know, it's had some positive gains, but it's created a lot of problems in the state because the state agency program decided that they would ask the judge in the bond validation hearing that occurred in October 2023 to exempt them from getting the agreement of the local governments. Those agreements would be reflected in interlocal agreements, right? We have our own agreement with the state agency. After that bond declaration judgment, they canceled all the agreements. They didn't cancel ours. So you might wonder why. Why didn't they cancel ours? Because we were one of the incorporators. We helped incorporate them, so they didn't cancel ours. But they canceled all the others. The counties were very upset. Tax collectors were upset. Property appraisers were upset. There are lawsuits pending all around the state. I think a couple of them are headed for appeal because it took away more home rule. This action, not the legislature, but this action, this judicial action, took away some measure of home rule. It negated the ability of local governments to prescribe standards, protective standards, or whatever standards they want. We have a standard. I don't know that you know it. You know it so few a time when it comes on the agenda that we don't allow any PACE operator to come into this county unless we go and do our due diligence and establish that they are a consumer accountable entity and that they will add value in our community. We have turned down some. You don't know about those, but you know about the ones that have been because I bring it on the agenda and tell you this one's all right. Well, the local governments have lost that ability as a result of this circuit court judgment that came out of Tallahassee for the bond validation. So everyone was in an uproar. I know you had to have heard this in your county commission, especially the small county coalition. I know that they were all very upset by this loss of power, this potential power to protect their constituents. So the legislature did come up with a reform bill that it reinstated home rule. It put in a number of consumer protection provisions. I followed that obviously very closely. I think they did a really good job. And so I would recommend you endorsing it. It hasn't been presented yet to the governor to sign, but to endorse this legislation, I think we would be a very important voice. I don't know that people in Tallahassee might look at it that way, but we were the county which helped that entity become incorporated. So I'm recommending that. If you have any questions, I did send you an email that I received from Devry, our housing coordinator. Her comments that, and you probably have heard or seen. I got one in the mail, a little flyer that said, "Hey, you can do your whatever," and it said Flagler County offers at the top. So it made you think it was a county program. I didn't particularly like that circular. So she had people calling her, coming to her and asking about it. And so people were not sure. So I think this would be a step in the right direction in the public interest of Florida to endorse this legislation.
Okay, thank you, sir. And in the text of the item, it says to consider endorsing the new legislation by writing a letter to the governor with a copy to the Florida Association of Counties. Now, the letter is not attached, but that will, by doing this action, then we'll be able to send the letter out.
Yes, we would draft an appropriate letter.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Just
Questions for Mr. Dees?
Is there a time limit on how long the governor has that on his desk before he has to sign?
I don't know. This is very unusual sessions. Bills are being presented very, very late. I've never seen anything like this. I don't know that there's absolute time limit. The legislature has to send it over. They have to take some actions to send it over. I'm not sure it's actually been sent over to the governor to trip the clock for the veto. I don't know.
Well, that's only the urgency.
Well, they're not in session.
Right.
Well, but the bill's it's a consensus bill, right? So that's what.
Yes.
So
It passed by a very large margin.
I do think there's a time limit. I mean, I think the governor has a certain.
From when he gets it.
Well,
From when he must physically receive a formal transmittal from the legislature, and then the clock starts on whether he's going to sign it, veto it, let it become law without his signature.
So if this is approved this evening, we'll be able to get something out.
Oh, we do it right away.
Okay.
This letter will go out tomorrow.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 8D and send a letter to the governor, copy to the FAC, approving this.
A motion by Commissioner Hanson. Second by Commissioner Pennington.
Mr. Chair, just
Sir.
one other part of the discussion before we vote. I just looked it up real quick, and this posting from the governor's office itself says that he received that bill on the 17th. Today, actually.
Today?
Yeah, today. Received the bill.
Okay.
Oh, quick.
There you go. Timely. We were clairvoyant over here in the legal department.
Well.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Pennington, and I'll throw this out for public comment if anybody in the public wishes to address this issue.
Yes, good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. I have brought this subject up to the commission before. I've spoken to Mr. Hadid about this. This has been a problem in other counties. Elderly people who thought they were just getting windows or getting the badly needed roof fixed, all of a sudden found out that they had a second mortgage and there were liens, and that was being sold for tax purposes. People being forced from their houses. I know he says we are due diligent with the contractors we allow and not some of the scammers who took of these people for their money, et cetera. Should the governor decide to veto this for some reason or other, Just be wary. I know Mr. Hadid is on top of it, but just be wary on how we go forward with this program and it doesn't become the way it was in some other counties. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing no one, I'll bring it back to the board. We'll call the question. I have a motion for approval by Commissioner Hanson, seconded by Commissioner Pennington. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. All right, ball's in your court, Mr. Hadid. Item 8.
This is a ball I don't particularly want in my court. This is a very difficult one. But anyway, we are left, we have an appointment to the PACE board, the very board we're talking about that brought the action in the Leon County Circuit Court to take away a home rule. So we have a vacancy there. We are entitled by law to make an appointment. It can be a commissioner, it can be a non-commissioner. This is obviously involving the world of finance as concern improvements to real property, so that's the subject matter. The board meets quarterly. Let me see, I think I put it in here, right? The board meets quarterly. They meet in Orlando. They do reimburse the members of the PACE board, although it's not very much. I think it's, what did I say, $350 a meeting? Yeah, $350 a meeting to cover travel expenses. It is a 5-member board. The agency has no debt. The agency has adequate reserves, and this is based on the report from former Commissioner Barbara Revels, who was this commission's appointee to that board. But now she has stepped down. And so the administrator, you might know, I think he's county commissioner from Sarasota. I know he's from Sarasota. Mike Moran, you might have met him in your FAC travels. So I did identify that possibly if there are any costs incurred that the PACE agency, doesn't reimburse for, possibly the county might consider those reimbursements. I don't know. I just wanted to put that out there. I don't know how extensive. Why do I not know how extensive? Because there are many pending cases. I don't know how they're going to resolve them, especially if the legislation passes. There's some very, very complex undertakings here. There have been bonds issued. If this legislation passes, it will cut off, it will change a lot of things. The unwinding of all that stuff is very complicated. It will be very complicated. Now, the agency has its own counsel. I'm sure it's insured to the hilt. But this appointment would not be for the faint of heart. This will take somebody that's going to be willing to roll up their sleeves and to get in there and advance the public interest in how this particular agency does its work. So you have that appointment, and it's really in your hands as to what process you want to go through. I'm not saying you need to appoint someone today, but you do need to appoint someone soon, especially if this, if he does sign this, if the governor does sign this into effect, then it's going to have some immediate impacts, and you would want your appointee to be on the ground floor of those things. So that's it. Sorry, I can't give you, I don't have any names to suggest.
Okay, so
in
we'll
your
bring
hands.
we'll bring it back. Obviously, we have 2 departing commissioners. So on this side, I'm available. I can make my schedule work. So I know you're very conflicted with your work schedule, but anybody who, if you have deep convictions and want to do it, I mean, as chair, I'm okay to take on the, okay, Commissioner Hanson says I'm good. All right, so then I would need a motion to, for that appointment.
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint yourself, Commissioner Dance, to be the Florida PACE agency seat.
I just have
Yeah,
one
board
comment.
member, board member.
I'll second that, but I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
My comment is, over the last 8 years, anytime pace issues came up, it always seemed to be a problem. There was always something concerning happening. That's just me. That's just me over the last 8 years. So I'll support you doing this. I almost think we need a real estate attorney to be the person on this board, but that's okay. I'm just saying that, to me, this is always a problem area. And as one of our speakers pointed out, I just be careful about this one. That's all I'm saying.
I would counsel you, if you do join that board, I would first thing I would do is get a copy of their directors and officers liability policy and read it cover to cover. Fraught with peril.
Well, I will consult with our legal staff. Thank you for all the warnings.
I'm just in the sales business like Mr. Hadid.
I mean, it does not have to be a commissioner, but we would need to get started on it and at least evaluate it and bring it back if need be.
I think there's time to appoint, if you find out that it'd be better to, some kind of a real estate attorney, if that's what you determine, then we make another appointment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
And thank you for the for the warning. At this time, I'll open up for public comment on this item. Anybody wish to address the commission on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. Call the question. All those in favor signify with aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you all, I think. All right, we will move to public hearings. This is a quasi judicial process. The audience should refrain from clapping, booing, or shouts of approval or disagreement to avoid potential legal ramification and possible overturning of a decision by the courts. A public hearing must be fair in 3 respects: form, substance, and appearance. There are time limits observed for staff, the applicant. Public comment will be 3 minutes per speaker, and there'll be applicant rebuttal and closing staff comments. So I'll ask the commissioners if there's, if they have any conflicts.
No,
or
sir.
Disclosure.
None.
None.
I guess the only thing I will mention is I was in the office when the applicant was talking to staff, so I was present while, really just a rehash of these same items that I heard from the applicant, but I have been exposed to this prior. Mr. Mango, you have the floor.
Adam Mangle, Growth Management Director, and subject property is here depicted on the graphic, on the display, no monitor, also within the staff report on the cover memo. And you can see the location, 6 Sanchez Avenue, just north of 20th, in between North Ocean Shore, which is off the map here to your right, to the east, and then the intercoastal that's also off of this map to the left-hand side or to the west. And then, as is typical for our items, we do display then the future land use, low-density rural estate. It is that 1 block back from the frontage along A1A, so it doesn't have the mixed-use low that you would expect along those parcels fronting on A1A. And then likewise, this is R1 zone. This is one of those lots of record within the development that's here, normally requiring a minimum of 1 acre, but because these are lots of record, they don't have that requirement for the acre minimum. And then not the RC, because the RC borders along A1A. Not part of a special flood hazard area. Outside of the special flood hazard area, it is Zone X shaded. And then soil types, just what we'd figure, also no real concern there, Bimini. And then likewise, no wetland areas that are associated with that. Bimini sand doesn't have that along with its mix. So a 5,000 square foot lot size, 50 by 100, again, lot of record. And then part of the paperwork that was submitted, you have it within your packet, are tree forms that we have for new residential construction. Show that we reviewed it first, then rejected that initial tree form submittal. Then on resubmittal, it indicated that there were 72 inches of index trees that would be provided in its post-development condition after the permit was done, after all improvements were completed on the property. And then the way that was going to be broken up, 4 southern magnolias, 16 inches in total, 4 red maples, 16 inches, and 2 oaks at 40 inches. All the trees ended up being removed from the subject parcel as part of the on-site construction, including the 2 oaks that were to remain. One of them was 16, I think the other one was 24 inches in size. Those were the 2 that added up to 40. Those were actually going to be existing trees that were intended to remain, so that before what they were facing, if you look back at that math, 32 inches of replanting was what would have been needed, retaining 40, the 2 oaks, 40 inches. When those 2 oaks dropped off, 72 total inches were needed to be replanted. Owner claimed hardship due to the size of the property, also a limited area because of drain fields. So this was a little unique. It actually has 2 drain fields that were required. Talked with Health Department about that. It doesn't happen often, but it is something that can be done. It doesn't require any special consideration from the Health Department per se, other than just there are 2 drain fields on the property. And so what we did was we then talked about a temporary CO with the owner. And useful here to mention at this point, Phil Portal, the owner, his brother Joe is the contractor. And not that we want to create hate and discontent among the family. It does appear that there was some lack of communication, if anything, between the contractor and the owner ultimately. Perception that we have is that the contractor had submitted the paperwork showing that these trees were going to be preserved, and then at the end, as it's nearing completion, the contractor was told that it did not meet our requirements, and was a surprise then to Phil as he was preparing to occupy the home. We offered that option then for a $2,000 cash bond. We based that at least in part on the idea that the 2 oaks that would have been removed, would have been required to be retained that were removed, would have been approximately $500, I think is how our code refers to it. $500 per stem would have been the penalty if those would have been trees effectively removed without permits. And then effectively doubled that with the idea that that's some deposit money that if we needed to come in, plant something somewhere else, that's the reason why we arrived at the $2,000. Again, approximating something. We don't have a tree fund established. We don't have anything that's really in our code that supports that dollar amount. And then the reason why that $2,000 was needed was because that got us to the point of doing the temporary CO, and then also then led to Phil Portal then submitting the appeal. Planning and Development Board rejected his appeal. And remember, what he was appealing Planning Director's denial on the permanent CO on the residential building permit, under the idea that the concept that the 72 inches of replanting had not been met. At the point when we had heard this at the Planning Board, there were no trees that had been provided. We discussed it then afterwards with the owner at the Planning Board with that split vote, that 4-3 vote. Phil came up to us and we said, yes, please plant something. And so he has gone through and done that. He's planted 7 trees. We approximated that at about 18 inches. I think he's got some information that shows it's probably a little bit more than that is what's been provided. And you'll see those pictures here in just a moment. And we're here under his appeal. So what he's appealing now at this point is the Planning and Development Board's denial of his appeal of my decision. There'll be a playbook later, right? And so here's that form I mentioned that showed that initial submittal, and this was one that was rejected. And then the subsequent form that came in, and this then allowed the permit to be issued and showed what would have been the 4 southern magnolias, the 4 red maples, the 2 oaks retained. Of those 4 southern magnolias and 4 red maples to be planted, and this would have been consistent with our requirements, 180 total inches on the property prior to development, 72 inches being that 40% that you have to have post-development, either retained or replanted. So here's that graphic that I think was the initial one that came along with the submittal. The trees that we were talking about, if you look on the left and right of the driveway, that's south is tree A, north is tree B. And then that driveway, Sanchez Avenue, remember Sanchez at the bottom is actually east. A was the 16-inch oak, B was the 24-inch oak. Joe Portal presented at the planning board that those were removed because of utility conflicts. And so that where previously he had said that they would be retained. Also, I believe he also stated because of the drain field in the case of A, and then also because of just moving equipment onto the property, that those two trees needed to come down. I'll emphasize, same as I had for the planning board, there was no resubmittal that was provided by the contractor that came back and said, hang on, we need to resubmit here. We need to come up with something before we get to the point of the completion of the home. That once this final survey came in, this was when the relief was sought. And A and B then still showing here, but I think this was this middle. This was before correction. This was the last that came in that showed the drainage. And there had not been a final after this because we came back and said, we've got enough on this. This shows the elevations, but we knew that trees A and B had been removed. And so the exception of trees A and B that are showing as here, but had actually been removed, this is the final survey.
Do both those drain fields function?
They do, yes, sir.
They put those in while they're building the house?
Yes.
They're brand new, okay.
Yes, sir. And so here's the replantings that had happened. So this is the rear corner. This is that, if you're looking down the property line, looking west, it's going to be the back right-hand side. And so this effectively is the northwest corner of the property. You can see the two plantings there. And then this is looking down that north property line, facing approximately due west, same two trees. And this split photo here on the right-hand side is the front property line. This is generally facing towards the front of the home. On the photo on the left, the front of the home is just off to your right. And so we're kind of looking down to the southwest there. You can see the three plantings along that front property line. That drain field is just beyond that planting area, the light gravel area. And then this graphic on the right, the photo on the right, is a magnolia. You'll see this several times. And then the other tree that there's two trees that were planted there. You can see the one at the property line. This is on the basically the northeast corner on the right-hand side. So you'll see this magnolia another time. This is that other view. This is facing pretty much due north. That's that same tree you just saw in the other photo.
Back to those three, they're right on the property line, correct?
Yes, sir, they are. I believe so. Then this is that one. This one's also on the property line. You can see, I'll say, maybe I'll qualify that a little bit, knowing that the power line, the power pole is typically the line itself. So we're maybe a foot or a couple of feet off. You can see there in relation to the power pole, this is the northeast corner of the property. And then beyond that then is that portion of Sanchez right-of-way itself. So we've got options for the board. We do have a bit of a different one where we've offered this up. The first would be the approval of the appeal request. And so in this context, Phil Portal has brought this forward looking for relief where there is no relief in the code. And so he's seeking your overturning, effectively, of planning board's denial of his appeal, and in turn then also overturning the planning director's decision on the denial on the permitting. And so that would be then effectively granting relief, finding in favor of the homeowner, and that would then result in the issuance of the certificate of occupancy. You could also potentially approve in part, and this is that second item here on this slide, requiring some amount of replacement caliper inches. Again, realizing he's planted 7 trees, approximately 18 inches. He'll clarify if, as he said, he believes that's more. To be planted on the subject property, along with requiring planting of the remaining or some amount of caliper inches, publicly owned parcel or payment to be placed within a dedicated fund in lieu of planting. Recalling we still have that $2,000 bond amount that's out there. You could also deny the request, and that would leave him with the temporary CO. And beyond that, I'm not sure what else that would do for us. You could continue this to a time and date certain on the basis we need more information. And again, that last item, we still do have that $2,000 cash bond that was the condition of the issuance of the temporary CO. The intent there with that is that could be used as a penalty amount, could be held forfeit, that could be used then for replanting by the county, or effectively, as we're working on those tree ordinance amendments to the Land Development Code, this could be the seed money that we need for our tree fund. So with that, I'll close, await any questions or comments from the board. And Mr. Portal is available in the audience for any questions.
This is the issue we're going to fix with the Land Development Code, correctly?
Yes, sir. It's one of a few on the trees. Probably the principal one is that right now there is no relief that's available.
Right.
If you can't make it happen on this, again, this one being 180 inches is what was originally on the property, on a 50 by 100 property. And arguably, that's probably why this property hadn't developed sooner.
Yeah, I would just comment that our rule is terrible. Doesn't work, current rule. Although Mr. Dance has worked on this a little bit.
Yes.
Got any comments? You've been working on the tree ordinance.
Yeah, should we give the applicant some time? Let's do that first. Is Mr. Portola here? Come on up, state your name for the record and.
Joe Portal, 6 Sanchez Avenue, Palm Coast. As Mr. Mengel mentioned, there's 2 draining fields in there. And I put the trees in the front of the house. Those 2 trees together, they're like 5 feet apart. And from the draining field, they're about 6-7 feet. The same thing in the back. I just don't see any between on the sides of the house, there's 2 draining pipes that come from the gutter, so the water drains to the front. And there's another pipe on the left side that goes from it's like a pump station from one draining field to another. Don't quote me on that, but there's 2 pipes in there. So in the size of the house, there's no ways you can put any trees in there. Plus, I talked to a couple guys from Legacy Farms. Trees to grow healthy, they need to be at least 20 feet apart. And the way I did my best. And pretty much I got about 25 to 27 caliper inches right now. And I don't know where to put any more trees because they're going to be right on top of the draining fields. There's no space where to put them. And it's something that I'm being punished, I guess, for something that I didn't even know. I'm not getting the CO because somebody made a mistake. If those 2 trees, they were preserved, none of this problem would have happened. You know, that's the way I look at it. So I'm being punished for something that I had no, I didn't pull the permit. So I don't know what else to do, Maybe somebody can come, maybe you guys can come over there and take a look at it. I'd be willing to show exactly, physically exactly how things are in there. And maybe you'll have a different opinion about. But I'm willing to do anything that I can. I just want closure on this. I want peace, peace of mind. That's about it. I just don't know where to put any more trees in there. I did 7 65-gallon things, the bigger ones, and it comes to, I did the measurements, comes to in between 26, 28 inches of caliper inches. That's all I got.
Are you living in the house now?
Yes.
Good.
Any other questions for Mr. Portola?
I think I understand the situation. Is it that he can't meet the rules? And can we abrogate those or not? It would be the question.
Right. I think,
Maybe this will be like a way for the future. You know, if something like this happen, they should have something in place,
And
some
we just
type
gotta
of
worry
rule.
about
right.
You know, I'm not saying amend it, but there's always something like this is going to happen again. You know.
So what I would say is right, the correction that's in the works, that is
And
going to
I
be
think
coming.
I'm not patting myself on the back, but I think it looks really, really good.
Okay.
What I did over
It looks
there.
nice.
That is going to address problems that have occurred through here, which is basically what the gentleman said, is that the original plan had the 2 trees saved, and the plan to replace the other trees, which was viable. So the plan had a viable plan. It's just the other 2 trees were taken out without a permit. And then our code just doesn't accommodate, as it is today, the penalties or the replacements. And that's what's led to kind of where we are now. You know, obviously, if this was, if we were addressing this currently, there would be higher mitigation for the trees, and there would be a tree fund established. So a significant penalty of trees after we planted as many as we could on the lot. And he's right, you can't put plant on top of plant. They will over time, it may look okay, but in the next 5 years, they'll start growing together. They won't be healthy. They need room to grow. But there would be a mechanism to take those fines and implement them for other public areas. So there's options to us to try and work this around. I think we'll open it up for public comment and get some of the. I know there's a few people here for public comment, but as Adam has said, there's some discretion. Right now, we are holding $2,000 kind of in escrow, which could be the penalty. The penalty could be increased. I mean, in tomorrow's dollars, you know, if this happened in 2 months, this type of, replacing 40 inches of trees would be about $8,000 in penalties under the draft that we're looking at. But that's not, we can't really use that as a basis. It's not our current code as it is now, although we do have some discretion. So,
Mr. Chair?
yes, sir.
How long when does the temporary CO expire?
I don't think there is one.
Okay. But that's the way he's able to live in the house at this point.
I don't have any other place to live.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to understand the legal side of it. So that's what you issued for the time being, correct? From what I read?
Make sure I fix it. I think the temporary CO may be longest 6 months duration. And I'm trying to think back now, it's probably every bit of about 2.5, maybe 3 months into it. So.
If it's okay, we'll go to public comment.
Thank
All right, so thank you, sir. At this time, I'll open up this item for public comment. Approach the podium and state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Leah Groom from I live in the hammock.
Pull that down for us. Thank you.
How's that?
Very good.
As I recall from the last meeting when he was given the temporary CO, you guys had, or planning and zoning, sorry, had said that they were giving him this temporary CO so that the new tree ordinance could fall into place. So it'd be kind of a shame to push it forward now when the tree ordinance are coming soon. So I think that that he can still have an extension and he can still live in it, because it's a sad story when they just do whatever they want, and then there's just there's no replacing those trees, with little ones. So I just thought I'd remind you that you guys did say that you would kind of hold off until the tree ordinances were passed, and that's coming soon. So just another little extension on a temporary CO. If he's planning on living in it and not selling it, should be golden. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment? All right, I'll bring it back to the dice. Mr. Hadid, I understand the conversation at planning board, but is this action being in the past, we could use a future adoption of the code as a guide, but would not be able to hold them to the letter of the law because it was passed afterwards. Right.
Pardon me. That's right. You're not trying to hold the gentleman to a rule that's hypothetical at the moment. However, the flip side of that is there is no relief unless you make some reasoned decision that creates as much of the whole as you can. By the whole, I mean WHOLE. So you do have a great deal of latitude. You could actually, you kind of referenced it yourself when you were going over it. Well, obviously you can do, look, we can't grant it. That's the way it is. We're gonna have to figure out how to get those inches in, which we're told is not wise, right? It's impossible. It would be almost a self-defeating determination based on the comments you made about how much room a tree needs to thrive. So now you're left with, okay, well, what are we going to exact in order for this to occur or allow it to go forward, while at the same time, and I want you to keep this in mind, that you're not creating a bad precedent. Unfortunately, the tough cases are the ones you have to really be alert to in terms of not creating a bad precedent. So I don't know how to guide you. You can say, look, we think that a proper damage remedy is X based on your informed judgment. And that would be, it would be that you would have to, sir, you would have to comply with this remedy, or we have to stand under our code. We can't vary from the code unless we have something compelling under the circumstances, which would be, whatever it is you prescribe. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I guess I can disclose that at least the plan is to have the draft reviewed by some of our stakeholders this week, with planning board being the next meeting in July. I think that's the plan. And then this coming to us in July as well, to the commission back in July. So since it's not finalized, and we anticipate a lot of public feedback, I think it would be premature maybe to make some calculations, although again, I'm open to any other thoughts on it, but the suggestion being we could wait to see what the final outcome is by tabling it, and then maybe not draw exactly one-to-one as what's going to be adopted, but I'm open to hearing everybody else's thoughts.
Yeah, the only problem with that is the retroactive piece of it. He's already created the problem. So we're going to hold him to rules that haven't been made yet. That's
right. And that's the part of the discretion that we have.
Right. The other thing would be to as a commission, come up with a way to bank, I use the word fine him, but put a dollar value on the amount of trees that it would take and put that into a bank, a tree bank.
And that's part of the code.
Right.
That's
That's
part of the.
that's part of what we're going to do, but
Right.
I don't know what the number is. But $2,000 is not enough. But and we could do that tonight.
I have just a quick question here for Adam. Adam, at what point between clearing this lot and building did you recognize, or the department recognize, that the trees were gone? How far did the building process get?
I think I believe it happened when we completed the inspection based on this survey submittal. And so that's when it was determined that both A and B were missing.
So at that point, our department, or we couldn't stop building, or you're saying it?
It was complete at that point.
Yeah, so
basically
that's
complete.
something to really, particularly in these areas where you need to go out, we need to be checking between the build and the clearing before they go further to build an entire structure. So, Mr. Hadid, what is in our purview in regards to fining for this particular issue, if we were to resolve it?
Your best informed judgment.
I just,
Commissioner Sullivan.
right. I think the idea of, and I know Al said it won't be precedent, but I do think we have to be careful what we do here because of the idea, whether you like it or not, people will know what the decision was here. My personal thought was, say what was done was against the rules, but it was done and we have a fait accompli and there's $2,000 on the table. I mean, if we, and that's the penalty.
This sets precedent, do you believe, Mr. Hadid, if we go in a manner of such?
People will claim that it sets precedent.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's very dangerous to do down in this particular corridor. So,
Yeah,
And another question for Mr. Deed. If I remember right from the reading, if we, whatever action we take here, if Mr. Portal doesn't agree, he has redress in the circuit court, correct?
Potentially he does.
Mr. Mingle, so considering the 40 inches were removed after the fact without a permit, I believe those require 1-to-1, right? They don't fall under the 40%.
Correct. Yeah,
So those have to be replaced. I think it's part of those have to be replaced 1-to-1 plus the 32. We're back to 72 inches. We're back to 72 inches that have to be planted. So if we subtract approximately the 30, we'll just use it as a round number because we haven't measured it. We don't know exactly what it is. It'll have to be measured. So we're roughly around 40, 42 inches. That's current code.
correct. Yes, sir.
So he would, without doing anything, those trees have to be, it says planted on site, but we do have discretion to plant those in other areas.
I don't think you have that discretion now. I think, at least not through the code, I think you do have that discretion as the board.
Okay.
Yes, and I think that there is some, I want to say we have done this in the past on public areas where I cannot recall correctly enough about the Bay Drive clearing that had happened years ago. But that's kind of the precedent by all this, by which all of this is measured. That close to about 20 years ago now, Bay Drive, the Bay Drive Park area, had been cleared, and that's what got in motion our penalty. And I believe there was $500 per tree penalty. And then I think there was also a planting requirement on public lands, if I'm recalling, and I may be recalling incorrectly.
So that's approximately 10 trees. Ms. Petito, do we have locations for 10 trees in the hammock?
Maybe, maybe at the Hammock Community Center or something like that. That would probably be the only.
Bay Drive Park.
Bay Drive Park might
So
be
I guess
another.
the part of what I was getting at is we could let the applicant submit an estimate or a proposal from a vetted certified company for 42 inches of trees, and either allow that company to plant them or take an in-kind contribution of that same estimate or proposal. That's allowed within the current parameters because those, for what we have to replace, that's the only thing I can think of without being subjective. Use a real proposal from a certified, from a company that we clear. If they don't want to, if there's no room to plant them, then it would be then there would have to be a contribution, the first for the future tree fund.
Correct. I agree with the intent and it seems sound. Yes, sir.
So like 7 6-inch trees.
Would
that work?
Probably, we could say the size. Obviously, the bigger the tree, the more expensive per inch they are. The younger, the sweet spot is from 3 to 4 inches is really where they are easy to manage for a company, and they have a very good survivability when watered and stuff. Bigger trees become a little more temperamental, but unless you have irrigation systems in store. But anything from, if it was a combination of 3 to 6 inch trees, I think it would be appropriate. What?
And then the precedent could be that you clear trees off, we'll find tree banks to put them in and then maintain them on public lands. I don't know.
Well,
Right.
unfortunately, there was, other than the planting, was the mechanism in the current code.
Yeah,
The
that's the
future
problem.
code will have stipulations for replacing the trees if they can't fit on the site. And the issue is they can't all fit on the site. So that brings into account the tree fund or planting them in other locations.
I mean, it's a little like mitigation.
It is. That's what it's called.
I think, Mr. Chair, the only question I would have, and maybe two parts. One would be, would the $2,000 then be part of that?
I would think so.
Okay. And then the second one is maybe to hear from Mr. Portal, just to make sure he understands what you're discussing and just to hear from
I
him.
mean, this is already the parameters in the current code.
Yes,
It's
sir.
just putting it into place.
I'd say so.
Did you have any comments on what we've discussed, sir? Okay. So does anybody want to?
Well, I like that because it's the current code. Sort of. So I think it's doable.
Does the code allow you to specify, I know you said it has to be the particular inches, but are you going to be able to specify the replacement of the size of each replacement?
I think you should
Or
state the tree type. They should be natives that grow in the native to the hammock, that are part of the ecosystem in the hammock, so that they're easily adaptable. I can pass if you want me to draft it, but
Well, no, I think we're headed down the right road here.
I think it'd be good to
the
get it done
trees have to
tonight.
be measured. We have to measure the trees that are on site. So that needs to be
Okay,
determined.
okay.
And we're looking at we're finding the difference between what's been planted and the 72 requirement.
should I make a motion to table so we can do this and bring it back with that information? Or, because if we don't,
I think you're really close. I don't know what we would accomplish if we table.
well, you have to make that motion with everything very specific. That's all I'm saying is.
Yeah, I think we.
We've
Chair,
got
I think you should
staff
pass the gavel and you do
Then you
it.
make your motion, yeah.
You got it. Make the motion.
All right. The motion is to accept a estimate for 3 to 6 inch trees that are native to the hammock ecosystem that match the remainder of inches from the 72 total and subtract the existing trees that have been planted to meet that total. The contractor that submits the estimate will be vetted by the county, and we can accept either those trees planted on public property or a cash donation that equals the amount.
Second.
Questions? I can't, you're in
Oh,
charge.
I had yes, apologies. Question is that, will that include the 2,000? That motion?
The motion is to include the 2,000 as part of that.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 9A, including the estimate for 3 to 6 inch natives to the hammock, matching the remainder, and including the $2,000 assessment fine. Do I have a second? Do we have a second from Greg?
You have a second.
I second it.
Greg.
Yeah, we have a second from.
Let me just
Yeah.
add,
Do you want to reform your motion?
no, just
Okay.
what I don't want
It was a
is,
complicated motion that they passed to me.
what I don't want is all of these to be bid as 3 inch trees. So I'm going to amend the motion that half of them have to be from 6 inch trees. Because that is a more significant tree. So I'll amend the motion to that of the remainder due, half have to be 6 inch trees.
I'll second the amended motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second by Commissioner Hanson. Ready? Any other questions?
None from me.
Okay. All right, let's open it up for public comment again,
I think.
given that the motion
Sure.
is. Seeing that there's no public comment, I bring it back to the board for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Seeing it, the motion passes. Giving back the watered gavel.
Good job.
Don't worry, the next one has its tree issues as well, so it's the common theme for tonight. All right, item 9B, quasi judicial. Is there any ex parte communications on 9B? Commissioner Hanson?
No, sir.
Commissioner Pennington?
None.
None.
Commissioner Sullivan? And we'll get Commissioner O'Brien when he comes back. This is quasi judicial project 202-309-0012, request for approval of a preliminary plat in the C2 General Commercial and Shopping Center and R3B multifamily districts for the Flagler Landing. Yes, sir.
Adam Engel, Growth Management Director. Parcels displayed on the graphic on your monitor, also within the staff report. This is south of 100, north of the airport. Probably familiar with this. Off to the east side is the Cornerstone Project, soon to be opening as BJ's Wholesale Club. And then off to the left on this, to the west, is the airport entrance and airport commons. You can see part of that here on the display. And then northwest up to the top left is going to be the high school. Oh, goodness gracious, went through all that. So the land use, commercial along the frontage, that residential high density on the back portion, and you see abutting the industrial for the airport. This had the multifamily residential on that south portion, C2 across the frontage again. Not part of a special flood hazard area, Zone X. We do have soils that are indicative of wetlands, and so that 12 is your Placid, Bassinger, and St. John soils, depressional. You can see those throughout the property. The 19 is Valkyria fine sand, not indicative of wetlands. And again, this being a means to approximate the presence of wetlands on the property. This then, again, being one of those other indicators, this is the National Wetlands Inventory, and this shows us that presumption then. Once we see these depictions of wetlands, it provides a presumption of wetlands.
Do you have any ex parte on this item, Commissioner?
Oh, yeah, I apologize. Yes, sir. I did, after going through the item, had a couple of general questions with the property owner, but any of my discussions wouldn't have any impact on my decisions this evening. So,
Thank
thanks.
you. Back to you, sir.
So we've got parcel size right around 38 acres, 11 commercial lots, those ranging in size from right around 35,000 square feet to 42,000 square feet for each of those. 4 tracks, including Reserve Track D. Plans include the 2 driveways off of State Road 100, and then you also have that connection to Cornerstone, to the main drive where the signalized intersection is currently underway being constructed there for the Cornerstone project. Pedestrian access is available through internal sidewalks. We do have the Flagler Landing Owners Association will handle ownership, maintenance of subdivision infrastructure and common areas. Tree density, as you saw, was estimated through sampling. You saw the graphic, and I'll show it here in a moment, that's got some area of sampling Carter Environmental had done that shows that within these areas, here's what the anticipated tree density would be throughout, so that there isn't a complete count across the entirety of the property. But for estimating purposes, the sampling areas were done, and then you extrapolate over the entirety of the property. Wetland impacts are still under review through the Water Management District. There were 3 site visits that were completed by district staff, and that district permit application remains active in review status. And the applicant and district review staff, from what I've talked with them about, continue to work on how that permitting will look, what those wetland impacts will be ultimately. Planning and Development Board did unanimously recommend approval of this and emphasize for the record, no construction can commence until all permits are issued. We don't typically include that as a full condition on these plats, but recalling, especially because statute has some language that says that we can't condition our approval on state approvals, but you'll see some language in there that talks about final platting, timing of infrastructure. We know also this is going to require water and sewer through the city, so eventually annexation would be needed for this project. Those 4 tracks I mentioned, and wanted to emphasize those aside from the 11 lots across the frontage on 100. So those 4 tracks, Tract A being your common roadway sidewalk infrastructure that runs through there. Also, that will be your conveyance land for your utilities, including your water and sewer. Track B set aside for drainage, sign purposes for Track C. That's up at that northeast corner, top right on the graphic. And then Track D, across the bottom, more or less corresponding to the R3B portion that had been previously future land use rezoned for the apartments. That's designated presently as for future development. One of the things we wanted to have with that future development tract is have some very specific language added to the plat. And this is what that language looks like. And rather than read this in the record, just wanted to have that displayed here for you to look at. This is taken off of the plat itself. And this was that very specific language that we had talked about at TRC to be able to have this added in that mainly said that there were no direct entitlements that would allow someone to move forward with permitting on Track D until and unless these things are taken care of. And so that was our intent with this to the degree that this language would be binding. And so it's future development. We wanted to make sure that it was explicit on the plat of what you can and can't do with Track D. And then at the same time, remembering that this was part of the future land use application, an amendment that we had designated that southern portion over to a residential, I believe it was high density. And so that we had put that in place, high density. And so we also had the cap that was added for 255 units. And recalling then that there still is the trip limitation along with both a daily and a peak hour trip limitation that's not only this parcel, but also the Cornerstone project to the east. Certainly mentioning for the record that that's intended to, in some way, curtail development. We are tracking that to the degree that we are able to track it presently. We are not nearing that number, but as we get closer, that those trips will be diminished and something then would be needed that could look like proportionate share contribution to DOT as we anticipate it, or maybe more correctly, we would want to have this survive any annexation, knowing that the annexation will effectively wipe out this policy, but we still think the trip generation limitation is something that's overall a good matter of public policy. So these next graphics just show survey portion that you have here, that part that's surveyed that corresponds. You can see glide paths, some other things that were there. We're actually out of that glide path. The parcel right there in the center, it says 57.8236. We're on that 38-acre portion of that to the east. And then here's that greater detail. So you can see we're just grabbing a portion of that glide path at that far northwest corner that's coming in. I don't believe that's been vacated yet. And then you can see here some beginning phases of that delineation of the wetlands with that areas there of uplands and wetlands delineated on this. And then this corresponds with some, other sheets that show in greater detail corresponding, following the survey that show some of the existing grades. So we asked for the topo to be included within our submittal. This is that tree graphic that we had that was submitted that has that sampling density. The two areas that you have with the green, showing the green dots, those are areas of upland. The yellow dots are tree sampling within wetland areas. And so that gives you an idea of what you're facing as far as stem density within each of those. And then this, probably more important, shows the relationship to the property, the Cornerstone project to the east, and then the subject property, and shows in the different colors the wetland impacts that are involved. And so with this one having some amount of potentially 23.6 acres of wetland fill, and as I've talked with the district, that may actually increase by some 3 acres more or less, at least as far as the impacts that are involved, and all that's still kind of being decided at this point. What we do anticipate will happen is that there will need to be mitigation provided in regionally significant mitigation, is how the districts term that. And so that's yet to be determined, and that is something that's allowed both through our rules and through the district's rules, but much of that is left to be determined. And again, that preliminary plat, they'll need that to be decided prior to commencement of construction on the property. We will issue our land development permit based on construction drawings, but the issuance of a water management district permit by the district will be the timing related to the actual commencement of construction on site. With all that said, here's the 2 pages of the preliminary plat. This is the cover sheet along with the dedications for each of the tracts, the description of easements in the notes. And then here's that layout, the 11 commercial lots across the frontage. You do have the non-vehicular easement that's there along the extreme frontage along the abutting 100 that allows or prevents any single lot from having direct driveway access. You have the tract A, that's the roadway, runs generally east to west, has the cul-de-sac termination on the west side, connects to its east side with the Cornerstone project and the main drive that runs north with the signalized intersection. And then at the bottom there, that tract D, the future development tract that's left out right now, presently outside of the planning stage, waiting for some yet undetermined use to come. And the intent there would be that the wetland delineation happens at that later point. We did provide these alternatives for the board. I think also there may be a supplemental item that Mr. Hadid will mention. So after I mention these, I'll turn it over to him with your permission. So we have identified options: approval of preliminary plat, subject to no construction to commence prior to issuance of a county land development permit, no final plat approval to occur until extension of potable water and sanitary sewers installed and approved by the city of Palm Coast as a utility provider, and any subdivision improvements not completed by the developer to be bonded or other surety provided consistent with the requirements of the Land Development Code. Alternatively, the board could deny the preliminary plat. We'd ask that you place on the record reasons for the denial. And then the third option, ran right out of it, was to continue this to a time and date certain. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hadid. I think he had one item to add to the options available to you. Thank you. I'll submit my report for the record. Wait any questions.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. In the staff report provided to you on page 2, Mr. Moylan, serving as Deputy County Attorney, pointed out that the applicant has not complied with the requirements of Article 6 of the Land Development Code, specifically, and those deal with resource protection standards, specifically that the areas that were going to be preserved are not identified. The purpose of the code provision is to divide the site into areas that will be developed and areas that will be left free of development activity. This is to protect natural resources. There's no indication on this preliminary plat about where that area is. So we believe that that is a deficiency. It renders it not consistent with the Land Development Code, and that issue needs to be responded to. It was identified in the technical staff report, so this is not a surprise. The applicant has noted that there are wetlands on Track D, but we don't know what's going to be preserved or mitigated. There's nothing there to guide us such that this potentially more urbanized land area, will have areas that are preserved. So there's two ways to address that. Mr. Bengal showed you a menu of conditions, and one is to add, subject to the conditions in the staff report, and additionally, no final plat approval. So we're holding it up, no final plat approval. So we're going to give them a green light, but no temporary green light, no final plat approval until the applicant identifies a conservation tract or tracts on the face of the plat in compliance with Article 6 of the Land Development Code Resource Protection Standards, specifically as it relates to wetlands and index tree protections. Now, there is an alternative. The alternative is to continue this, in other words, not act on it today, but continue it until the applicant can demonstrate compliance with Article 6 of the Land Development Code, specifically as it relates to wetlands and index tree protections. So we either address it now, it's got to be addressed before final plat approval. It's not addressed if you go for the okay, we'll make it as a condition of final plat approval. That means we will not put it on the agenda until there is that compliance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Dieter? The one thing I would say is if we can't condition it on final plat, because final plat it's already constructed unless they bond it. So I don't know that you really want to do that. It has to be addressed before final plat.
I'll go by your guidance.
Okay. Any other questions for Adam or?
I just want to hear from the applicant.
This is probably premature, but those commercial lots along the front that can't have direct access on the 100, you said that.
That's
What's
correct.
the parking? What's the parking situation going to be?
Parking has to be in each one of those blocks.
And
They have to have their own
That could
parking.
be good or bad. I mean, you could have.
We discussed this before. I mean,
Yeah.
the idea is to create a walking.
Well, but before it was
Community.
all apartments. It wasn't going to be all those commercial units along 100.
Yeah, they were there.
They were there?
Yeah, they were there. And the parking would be along that road in each individual
they'd
lot
have little
would have
turn-ins
parking.
there.
But remember, and you remember, we cautioned them to listen to Commissioner Dance's little speech at the end, because they have a chance to make this a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But don't screw it up, you know?
And, we just got through that tree thing. Maybe, can we put something in there? Let's not approve any tree plan or anything like that till we have the new tree rules.
They've
don't have
already
to-
submitted, so we're past that.
It's too late on that too.
Would the applicant like to do their presentation at this time, please?
Just if she can, this is a different group doing this now or the same group? As the one we had previously?
I can answer.
Same engineer. I'm not sure of the ownership.
Same ownership.
Okay.
Okay.
Kimberly Buck with the Allen Engineering Group representing the applicant, and the applicant is also here with me tonight. So in answer to your question, it is the same applicant. What was before you when we did the land use amendment and the rezoning is we changed it to, it was going to say commercial in front. We changed the industrial in the back to residential. Since then, the apartment user in the back, they have they've walked basically. They're no longer going to do the apartment project. So, but the owner of the property, the applicant, is still moving forward with the commercial aspect in the front. So that's what you see before you now. And because we don't have a user for the back piece, we originally were going to plat that as a lot, but since we have no real idea of what's going to happen back there, this was where we had a preservation area prior, and we don't know what's going to happen, and so that's why Adam built into the plat that this would instead be a tract, and that it would be basically a future development tract. And so whatever we do in that tract would have to come back to this board. It could be that we subdivide it into 6 other lots, or it could be residential, it could be commercial, it could be one giant development. So right now that's kind of up in the air. We don't know what we're going to be doing in that area. Let me point out again that the front hasn't changed. We're still the same commercial lots. The retention pond is, generally in the same area. And so that back piece is kind of the placeholder for the future development of, tree preservation, wetland preservation, when it moves forward. And really, I don't have a presentation. I'm just kind of here to answer any questions, as is Ken Atlee.
Well,
yes, sir.
So, how do you respond to the issue about Article 6?
So to point out, we talked about that at one of the TRC meetings. The attorney, Sean Moreland, was there. We discussed the fact that the commercial lots are showing, entirely impacts to the wetlands. And from our point of view, the wetlands were going to be reviewed with that parcel to the south. That's how it's been from the beginning, and so that's what we were intending with the continuation of the development of this project. And so we looked at that as an option, which is again why the caveat got put in here about how had to come back to y'all before we could develop that parcel. When we got the final TRC comments, there wasn't anything from the attorney. They were still pending. And so the actual language that you're seeing here didn't show up till we got the planning board staff report. And so, little unprepared, but we understand where they're coming from. And, again, we feel like that is going to occur with the development of that southern piece as it always has.
Does, I don't know who would answer this, does this issue about not in compliance with Article 6, does that just pertain to this Tract D?
That is what will be affected.
Okay.
That area will be affected because it's going to have to take care of all of the set aside for the entirety of this project, the entirety of what they seek for a preliminary plat.
If we, can I continue? Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
sir.
If we approve the preliminary plat as presented here so far this evening, and Tract D stays the way it is, in order for any development to occur or any changes to Tract D, it would have to come back for what, a revised plat? I don't understand the legal side of this, so you have to help me.
Well, remember now, once you approve a plat, your rights as an imposing government diminish very significantly.
Right.
If there's a contemplation to do a preliminary plat, then I would add a preliminary plat condition so that you've preserved your discretion on that rather than simply saying, oh, when you come back, we'll address it.
So it's
Something that makes it mandatory and within the scope of the powers, it's a scale. Your powers decrease the farther, your authority to prescribe conditions declines as the project gets more and more to an entitlement state. Preliminary plat, well, as all of you know, platting ventures you extremely close to entitlements. So we want to make sure that that's not lost and it comes back as some sort of vague conversation. You won't have any, I don't know what you would want to do with that issue. There's no way I can glean that. The analysis hasn't been done. I don't know what your views might be on that, how strict you might want to be, how much you might want to adjust. But you don't, if we don't do something very explicit, your leverage is going to be significantly sacrificed.
Well, so Tract D right now is zoned for residential high density.
Future development, oh, well,
Isn't that the zoning? Isn't
it's
that what
being
we
platted
approved?
as future development tract.
Yeah, but
It is zoned for residential, you are correct.
right? So if you wanted to do anything other than that, you have no entitlement to do anything other than that, correct?
That is correct. If we wanted to do commercial, we would have to come back before this board and rezone and do a future land use amendment again.
And also, all subject to the Water Management District and
Absolutely.
any other agency that would have
Yes,
say over
and
it.
I might add, I disagree with the attorney. Because of the size of the property, even as a site plan, even if it's a platted lot, as a site plan, it still has to come back. Am I correct? So you're going to see it, if we do commercial, let's say, you would see a future land use amendment and a rezoning, and then you would also see a site plan. Oh, we'd go to planning board. Okay,
But
my
even-
mistake, sorry.
Even if you came back with a plan for residential high density back to the original thought process on Track D, it
Mhm.
still has to go through the approval process of the regulatory bodies, correct?
That is correct.
And wetland mitigation and
That is correct.
all of that, correct?
Mhm.
So-
But their only obligation is to meet the zoning code requirements because it's already zoned. So as long
Yeah.
as they're doing,
But that's how it is now.
yeah. Comments, questions?
Just so the commissioner is aware, my comments were if they come back and develop, and I'm not talking about a proposed rezoning situation, what is presently an approved residential. They come back, and we have not addressed this in a mandatory review context, or not preserved it.
Sir, did you want to speak?
My name is Ken Atlee, and I'm one of the partners in this project. I wanted to add just a little bit of color. I think it's important to understand a couple of things. The Track D was intended to be an apartment complex, but the apartment market kind of went away. They've gone away. As a partnership, we've made the decision it's not going to be residential. It's going to be a commercial development of some kind, which we're working on. So to the point of setting aside anything, we don't know what that's going to look like till we actually have users where we can do some site planning. To try to set aside something today could destroy the value for whoever we finally end up finding that might find this as an attractive commercial location. What I would like to emphasize is that the longer this site sits, there are several things that are happening. We're the bottom of a bowl. There is a road to the north that was raised when they built State Road 100. There's a berm along the airport south boundary of our site that creates another berm or dam, if you will. BJ's raised their site 4 or 5 feet. That dams up our easterly boundary, and Airport Commons did the same thing to our west. We're in a hole right there, and what's happening is all of that water from all these other people is congregating on our site, making our wetland issues worse. We just lost another 3 or 4 acres because of that. We had a line reviewed by the district. They came back and said, we're going to change it because of all the flooding we had last year in the fall when they came back to review the line. So as it sits there, we're collecting all these other people's water that is creating that issue. Another issue for us is we've got a beautiful 11-lot plat for commercial pads that all along we had been led to believe that this is really something that the county needs is more commercial development to provide the jobs. This is exactly doing what the county has said they need. If we continue to wait, there is a line forming to get the sewer capacity that is already stressed. There appears to be an issue that will solve that as they improve sewer plant number 2, but the longer we wait, the more at risk we are to have any ability to develop those 11 pads. So tonight, I'm asking you to show us favor to start the completion of these 11 lots with your vote to approve this preliminary plat, knowing we still have to come back to you for that Track D and decide how and what we're going to do there to comply with all the other things that need to be complied with. But tonight, if you could approve that preliminary plat, we can continue to work on those 11 out parcels, and we have a lot of people that want to be there that will create those jobs and create that development. We will meet all of the guidelines for each individual lot as we find users and then apply for their building permits. Let me stop there for a moment and see if you have any questions. I saw you were starting.
No, I was just going to remind the board that Mr. Atlee did the Jungle Hut development.
I'm sorry, I didn't even hear that.
I just reminded the board that you did the Jungle Hut development.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts with what I just outlined?
So Mr. O'Brien's question, it sounds like you'll have to come back to get change from residential to commercial at some point.
We've got to rezone that Track D to commercial because we will not be doing residential there.
Don't think residential anymore.
Yeah.
That's going away, but there's no approval to do that yet.
There's no approval for rezoning it yet because we haven't
Rezoning, yeah,
applied.
right.
We're going to do that. That's why it's a track to be developed, and you, of course, would have your discretion on what you do or don't do with regard to that when the time is appropriate. But that's when we can address all of the things that I heard Mr. Hadid mention.
Adam, didn't we specifically, there's some issues with making that entire property commercial because of traffic?
And there is traffic issues. There are some traffic limitations there, but all of that will be addressed through the permitting process. And we may develop to a point and have to stop until we arrive at a fair share or some proportionate shared agreement with DOT, but that's all in the permitting process as we get our each individual pad permitted. And at some point, we may reach a limit, and we will be stopped until that proportionate share agreement is reached. So there's a system in place, mechanism in place that will govern that. And if we can't find a way to reach a proportionate share, we have to wait until we can. So there is a mechanism in place to address that.
I would just say that the precedent that's been set for the front commercial is over almost 30 acres of wetland impacts, and we're trying to push off to the parcel D in the back that we're all of a sudden going to be sensitive to wetlands in the back. So the precedent that's been set doesn't necessarily carry to the rear parcel. I don't know that I'm following that all of a sudden we're going to be sensitive to wetlands in the back.
Well, there are wetlands throughout the whole site. The 30 acres is the entire site, perhaps, not the commercial frontage. There's a little more, I think, of the uplands on that commercial frontage. But remember, keep in mind, we've been sort of given the bad deal here with what went on all around us, creating a more wet environment on this site. And the wetlands grew from the time we had the district out just a few months ago till they did their final review of the portion of the property they were unable to do because of the rains. BJ's impacted the whole site. We've got a similar site. It does have a great deal of wetlands on it. And of course, through the permitting process, we have to comply with what the St. John's Water Management District requires of us, which is to properly mitigate through mitigation banks, et cetera, which would be handled through the district permitting.
Right. I think what Mr. Hadid was stating, that Flagler County has their own purpose statement for protection of natural resources. And it's
Understood.
basically a similar statement with the district, which is avoidance and minimization, showing us that you're taking into account the natural resources as part of the design process. And that just appears to be missing in this one.
Well, it's only missing because we don't know what we're doing with Track D. The commercial frontage is a little different duck, but we will address a lot of those things that are unaddressed today because we don't know what will happen on Track D, and it's a very large percentage of the property size if you look at that site plan again.
Can I ask Ms. Buck a question?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask Ms. Buck a question?
I think that's permissible.
So as we know, each of the individual construction sites are supposed to retain their stormwater within their boundaries in order to treat the stormwater. So can you explain how BJ's site, by being improved, is impacting this parcel if all of the stormwater is supposed to be maintained within the BJ site?
I'm not following you. Say this again.
Well, right, each development that we have, you contain your stormwater on site. It's not supposed
Correct.
to go off site on new projects.
It's, if it drains off site in the current condition, it can drain off site in the post condition.
But you have to treat it, and so it has to be
Correct.
treated.
It has to be treated.
So
Yes.
you have to treat the stormwater before it can go off site.
That is correct.
Okay.
Which we're doing
Okay,
with the master pond.
right. But how does that impact this site if you're treating it? And is it over? I mean, you're the only time it's going into the other wetlands is if it's in overflow conditions. So I'm just not following the rationale. That's all. But we don't have to have that debate here.
Used by your comment. So.
That's okay. Mr. Hadid, we have a preliminary plat in front of us. Pardon me?
I was going to go ahead. Go ahead. and
No,
I'll
you
ask-
go ahead.
No. It's currently this plat's not in compliance with Article 6. Is that what John's?
That's correct.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I just want to remember.
It can be cured.
And that's through the parcel D, but not necessarily in the plat that we're seeing,
We can put a plat note
which would be what?
that would bind them to come back and comply, show us how they're going to comply with Article 6 so that we have, for the approval of the preliminary plat, the leverage to address that issue as it goes forward. Whether they develop it as residential, commercial, industrial, no matter what, the designation eventually on that property, so that we're not giving up that issue.
And that affects the parcel D though only. The unimproved
Well,
residential
there
parcel.
might be consequences for what they do on the frontage that will affect those preservation areas.
Yeah, I think
that might be
the problem,
identified.
right? So the whole Article 6 thing is something that is addressed early on. We're at the preliminary plat stage, so I want to get the message out, right? And what has to change is that we're looking at the natural resource protection at the sketch plat review or the early stages of TRC, not when it comes to us at preliminary plat. These should be
Exactly.
taken care of beforehand. So retroactively, I mean, I want to, we can apply it to parcel D, and they've already got, as we've heard, water management district issues. It's a dead complicated permitting process that they're going through. My point is, there's plenty of wetland impacts that could have been avoided in the original concept design that is very disheartening to see, even along the commercial parcels in the front. Understood that you have to raise the sites, but there's a benefit to canopy, existing canopy on the right of way as you drive down 100 and not seeing just the clear cut that the residents are seeing. So pockets of retention of existing natural canopy will benefit overall the entire site. We see people hunting for shade every day, trying to find a tree to park under when we have trees already that we can work around. It's disheartening to see 30 acres of wetlands cleared in this development. So a note that we can attach to parcel D would be helpful, and hopefully, as we proceed, this one still is missing a whole component of tree mitigation that will be coming forth. But this one, I wish there was a mechanism to upgrade the trees to almost mitigate for what is being
there
removed.
is. We're forgetting here, there is a binary choice. I maybe didn't articulate that well. One is you can deny the preliminary plat and tell them to come back with that kind of Article 6 planning over the whole of it. That you can do.
Right,
Because
but
it's
that's
clearly,
that
it's clearly
penalizes
not
them
compliant.
severely.
I know.
That's a whole re-engineering,
I
and
know.
that's really not fair.
Well, I'm not saying, I'm just telling you it's a binary choice. I'm not making the choice for you. I just want to make sure you understand you're put into this situation because it wasn't done on the front end. There wasn't an intersection with it at an early enough time so it'd be manageable, so they wouldn't be at this point of having fully engineered it when it could have been addressed at a much earlier stage in the process. It's a process problem.
Is there a way to condition approval with, right? So our landscape code requires really just minimal 1.5-inch caliper trees. Is there a way to condition it for larger trees as the site plans come in, or is that out of line? It's not a PUD, so I understand that.
Really, it depends on the facts. It depends on the specific context. It's not a one size fits all answer.
If I might point out too, the idea of having, a preserved canopy along State Road 100, it's great, but it's also very difficult when you're having to put 4 feet of fill on a piece of property, and you cannot develop the site without doing that, simply because, like Ken said, we're in a hole, but the other regulation that you have to remember is the FDOT. We are along a state right-of-way, and we have to get a drainage connection permit. And the DOT will not approve a drainage connection permit if our finished floor isn't a foot above the center line of the road. And so, in a sense, they've kind of created the problem by raising State Road 100 so high, but now we have to comply with that. And so, we don't have a choice but to raise the site. And so it does make it very difficult to save a lot of the canopy.
So what you're hearing is they're going to clear cut. They're going to clear cut the lot.
Well, I mean, pull up the picture with the red on it. That's the one that the one that has the wetland impacts, and it's.
And I think Ken is also, I mean, I know you continue to say we're going to impact 30 acres in the front, and the entire project is 30 acres. So the wetland impacts, I do not have them in front of me, but it is less than 30 acres.
All right, so we have to come to a conclusion.
If I can throw
Yes.
one more thing out. If we have to add a caveat, I feel like we have already done that with the language that Adam came up with. I mean, he definitely had all of that in mind when he created this language. But if we're going to caveat it, if we could just make it very simple that it complies with whatever that article is of your code that you say we're not in compliance with, and just leave it at that, instead of getting into specifics.
The purpose statement of Article 6. So that would apply to D, basically, is what we're saying, which is where we started.
I feel like we've had plat notes before, and then they were in here, and we argued what the true. We had plat notes back in the gardens or somewhere in there that nobody could quite interpret, and then it doesn't seem enforceable. I don't know.
Plat notes are not notes. That's a legal document.
Right.
Yeah, but I feel
It's
like we've
binding.
argued about it before.
All right, so we have in front of us the approval of a preliminary plat for Flagler Landing. There's been a suggestion and acceptance of adding the Section 6 language of the purpose statement to apply to the remainder of the parcel, which is D, when it comes back for development. Is there any other requests or comments? I think,
And that's coming to the board.
Pardon me?
That will come to the board, or will it stop at planning?
to their intent, if it comes back as commercial, it will come back here. Has to be a land use and
But if it
rezoning.
doesn't, it stops at the.
No, but it would require a land use and zoning change. That's up.
They're going to clear cut this lot.
To the front, yes.
What they're building
They'll
now.
look just like BJ's.
Yeah. And then when they go to the back, they're going to clear cut that.
That's yet to be determined. That is up to us. That's why we're adding that language.
Look at the Jungle Hut development.
It
When
would
the
only
tree
happen
left.
if we allow it,
There
Commissioner.
wasn't a tree left.
But you can't, track D, if we put the language in there, that cannot happen unless it comes back to the commission.
And at this stage, it gives staff a little bit more ammunition at TRC to enforce the language and demonstrate that there's a conscious effort of preservation.
Yeah, I'm willing to go along with that, and let's give it a try. See if we can enforce that.
I don't know that I can, even with unanimous consent, to put some requirement. We didn't do it at BJ's. I feel like, our minimum tree sizes need to be larger for in order to mitigate for the wetlands that are being impacted and the loss of canopy. I don't know if that would be voluntarily offered up. Sure.
I couldn't hear your question. I'm sorry.
We're looking to, right, when the site plans will come back, the minimum requirements on our landscape code are 1.5-inch trees, which are not very big. They're probably the smallest that you can find for shade trees in the market. And due to the amount of wetland impacts and canopy loss, is there an opportunity to increase those sizes for the site plans that will be forthcoming in the future? So is there a way to condition that so we can get anywhere from a 2 to 3 inch tree, something bigger that will offer more quickly shade to
I
those
don't think we would
parcels.
have a problem with a 2 or 3 inch tree being added in there. I mean, we want to do something that's attractive.
Okay,
We always try to do that, and a 1 inch tree is not so much. So
right.
I don't think we'd really have any issue with a 2 or a 3 inch tree. As we know, they will get large fairly quickly as
Okay.
opposed to a 1 inch. So I'd be very happy to work with our group on that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So 2 conditions. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve with the conditions. I just need help on how to word them for the motion.
Mr. Deed, so we can motion for addition of the Article 6 language to parcel D?
You would condition it on compliance with Article 6 of the Land Development Code, Resource Protection Standards, specifically as it relates to wetlands and index tree protections. That would be the phraseology you would use.
For the back
For the
parcel?
for the first, yes,
For the remaining undeveloped parcel?
that's correct.
Okay. And then the second part would be to add larger shade trees to the site plans for this plat.
Correct.
So 2 to 3 inch shade trees. Want me to pass? Passing again. A motion to approve project number 202-309-0012, approval of the Flagler Landing preliminary plat, adding language to parcel D, the remaining undeveloped parcel that complies with Article 6, the Natural Resource Protection Standard purpose statement in the Land Development Code, and adding another conditioned for, and I'll draw a middle, 2.5 inch caliper shade trees as a minimum for for future site plans in this plat.
There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, open it up to public comment.
My name is Dr. Lynn Bravo Rosewater. I didn't know this issue was coming up, but I need to say that when you don't even know what they want to build, and they want you to approve their plat, I think that's problematic. That's what I hear Aladeed saying to you, that you're going to start giving power away. We've had so many examples of things. Once it gets an okay, that they say, oh, we've got status, we've got standing, you have to let us do this. So it seems to me till they know what they want to build, they shouldn't be here. And they drew this up for the apartment buildings. It's not going to be apartment buildings. I think you have an obligation not to approve something that isn't defined when they don't know what they're going to do. And when they know what they're going to do, then they should approach and do this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Clark, Flagler Beach. I agree with the lady that just spoke. And I agree with the attorney. You know, they don't know what they're putting up. They don't know the environmental impact on the front portion of that. And with all due respect, 2 to 3 inch trees are nothing when you're cutting down all these mature trees. It's going to take 40 years for those trees to provide any shade. They should go back, revisit the plot, and bring it back for approval. Find out what the density is, what the environmental impact is, so you can make an intelligent decision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for a vote.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
first, I want to ask the motion maker and the second, do they include the conditions that were outlined by the planning director, the other conditions that were outlined by the planning director?
So the other conditions being,
What what Mr. Mango went over and showed you on the screen. I guess
we're
you
talking
can,
about the limitations on traffic.
yes. The various,
Michael, do you want to
Yeah, can you?
come back to that for again?
Yeah, that's what he normally does.
Mr. Ringo.
his final report.
Let's see. Do I have control? I do.
That one.
There it is, that one.
And those are pretty normal.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's included within your motion.
Yes,
And the
subject to
second
those-
agrees
Second
for the
agrees.
record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would just say, if I can, to address the questions. I mean, what we have is a commercial plat, so we know what's limited, what can be placed in commercial zoning. And once we have it's already been designated as commercial zoning. So we're just platting it now to identify the lots and the parcels and where the access points are. So whatever is in the zoning code for this commercial designation can be constructed. So that's what we know. And that's the property rights that he has from the prior rezoning. So it's zoned commercial up front. Is it C1 to C2? So anything that's allowed within Z2 is a right by property owners to construct those. The rest of it has been predetermined in the land development code about what has to be followed, the resource protection standards, the permits. Unfortunately, until we redo the land development code, we've relinquished a lot of our wetland rights to the water management district. So that can be addressed in the land development code rewrite, but right now they are our permitting agency for wetlands. And we rely on them to do their due diligence in analyzing water quality and drainage and all those other things. But it is disheartening to know that the acreage of wetland impacts will be mitigated for some off-site wetland somewhere in the basin, but somewhere far away from where the impacts are. I think, and then we talked about the trees. I mean, the tree size is specified in the land development code for original size for whenever a development comes in. But thank you for at least negotiating on the fly with us a little bit. Obviously, 2.5-inch trees are not going to mitigate for the impact of the lost canopy, but it's better than what we had. I'm done.
Right. So we have a motion and a second, which included the options on the screen, A, B, and C. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Seeing that, the motion passes.
No, I was going to grab your order. Okay. Regarding this, let's see, I'll do mine under commission comments. County Administrator report?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, sir. Just real quick, one thing I wanted to follow up from our previous budget workshop earlier today. There was discussion about department head budgets that exceeded the 10% increase. Is there a desire to come back and have another workshop to talk about it, or would you prefer that I get the details together and I can email that out to you to look at, and then we can follow up from there?
The email's fine.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
That was it. That concludes my report. Thank you.
County Attorney report? I think he said he did. Oh, he did have something he wanted
He'll
to
be
share
right
with us.
back.
Okay.
Time for your report.
Various unceremonious way to introduce your report. I only have one item, and it's not a technical legal item. It's something that happened today. And I need to do something with respect to that. Sorry, I got to punch in my secure ID. Sorry, hold on. Actually, it has to do with Adam. Could I ask you to put this on the and magnify it? I don't know which side is the better one. Either one. Everybody can look at it while I'm doing this.
Some guy get turned on. Here he comes. He's coming.
Can you all see it, or?
No, not yet.
Here we go. We're going to get some professional help here. Okay. As you know, we had the groundbreaking for the Army Corps project. And it was a well-attended event. Everybody, I think, enjoyed it. And as you know, unexpectedly and a little bit to my embarrassment, Congressman Waltz, who was very eloquent, I thought, in his remarks, presented a medallion to me, which is being displayed. And it has to do with exhibiting servant leadership. And of course, my name is mentioned very prominently whenever, beach issues come up. So I guess that association stuck. But what I want to do, the recipients of this are the entire county as a whole. I want to donate this medallion to the county. And I know without asking that Congressman Waltz would approve this gesture. It is so consistent with what he said today, how he recognized the credit of all that worked together to make that project possible as well as fully funded. And that includes county and city officials and their staff, both past and present, that have been involved in this significant labor. And credit to the citizen groups, the HCA for one, the Flagler civic associations, Flagler Beach civic associations, the citizen initiatives, for example, GoFundMe, et cetera, or the business groups like FB3, or the property owner associations that contributed to the success of this project. And to our own constitutional officers, the tax collector, the property appraiser, the clerk, and the sheriff, and their staffs, who are always ready and available to assist. And I have to say also, the servant leadership was displayed by our incredible consultants and the volunteers that worked with my office at procuring the easements. And that includes Coast Title. That includes Debbie Meyer, who is my realtor consultant, very important. Jay Livingston, who helped me on very difficult title issues. Obviously, all of my staff. And even our surveyors, who went out there and walked into the ocean and surveyed those remnants to show how little was left from the forces of erosion, or after the forces of erosion. And all of those people and entities and institutions, they all delivered. All of them delivered. It shows when we work together, we can do anything. Now, there's a photo taken during Hurricane Matthew. it conveys that we are the little county that can, and that's what I like to call this photo. I have used it in many presentations, and I'd like them to display it. Okay, I see it there, but not on the main screen. Okay,
Right.
that's a photograph of one of our dozers called out during Matthew. This is during Matthew. And they were trying to dam up the breach that had occurred at Washington Oaks with all of that ocean water streaming in and flooding Marine Land Acres, and I can't think, help me, Oceanside. Is that Oceanside immediately to the north of Marine Land Acres on the north side? All of those homes and all the way down to the Malacompra Canal. So this is a picture to me that says 1,000 words. We're the little county that can. So I'm donating this for the whole community with a deep, deep thanks to our agency partners, whom I sincerely believe they were moved by, they were motivated by, they were inspired by our community spirit to achieve success. Now, commissioners, this project, I know that you are aware it's important. This is a generational project in the history of Flagler County. One day, what you have done and what all of those before us have done will be honored. There'll be a display or something for future generations. I want this medallion to be a part of that presentation to tell people about the servant leadership that has occurred over the last decade in this county to get us here. Perhaps it'll inspire some young or new leader to tap into that spirit of leadership and community organizing. So for that, I'm donating it. It's right there. We'll deliver it to Heidi. She'll be our custodian. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good, big event.
Fine thoughts there, and thank you for that gesture. But don't sell yourself short. You've been an integral part of this process for a long time. You have anything else you would like to add?
There's no way I can follow that with anything.
At this time, we'll open it up, this part of the meeting for community outreach. If anybody would like to address the commission, you have 3 minutes. Please come to the podium and state your name.
Hi, I'm Leah Groom. I'm a resident of the Hammock. I'm a little frustrated at the lack of code enforcement in our area right now. I feel like businesses that are coming in are ignoring the ordinances, especially in regards to seating. This has caused a lot of problems with overflow parking and noise distractions, which unfortunately interferes with our right to enjoy our property. Don't get me wrong, please. I am a proponent of responsible growth in the Hammock. I'm not against businesses, but I think that all businesses should follow the ordinances that were set by this county. I'm not here to complain, but it seems that the businesses don't remember that their lots, especially there, right there in the Hammock, are zoned residential and limited commercial use. It seems like there's a lack of consideration for the residences from the businesses. They don't communicate with us. They don't, not telling us what's happening. Myself and our neighbors, and my neighbors have tried. We've spoken directly with the businesses. We've called. We've, gone into the businesses. Often I've been told there's no manager available to speak to me, but they know they've heard all about the complaints, but nothing really is done. There's, this weekend there was no amplified music, so the parking, wasn't a problem. My neighbors have called the non-emergency. I know they've emailed the county. one thing, I don't know what else we can do. You mentioned transparency, but as residents, we don't know what's going on. Like right now, we're watching a whole lot get cleared. We've heard that it's for parking, but we're under the understanding that there can't be a standalone parking. So why is it getting cleared? There's confusion. There's neighbors putting up, crazy signs about, up and coming things because we're confused. Nobody is telling us anything. I do appreciate their effort to alleviate the problems, like by possibly doing this parking lot, but we haven't been told. I'm really just afraid for the future. If we don't start enforcing the ordinances that are in place, what's to stop the rest of the businesses from just doing what they want? So I guess we're frustrated from we're trying, we're calling, we're asking for help, but we're not being heard or we're not being told what's happening, which I guess, the transparency thing is kind of what's frustrating us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comments?
Dr. Lynn Bravo Rosewater. My concern is that there are clear laws in our codes, and people have been informed that they're not being followed and nothing's happened. Very clear code that says you can have 25% outdoor seating, 25% of what your indoor seating is. That is not being followed at all. And the fact is, people reported it. And the same thing with music. There is a code in Flagler County saying you can't be above a certain decibel, and residential is 60. And there have been bands playing that it permeates their houses. And so my concern as a citizen is, if we say, well, we got to enforce our codes, why aren't they being enforced for what's going on? It's not like nobody knows what's going on. It's like nobody's being proactive to do anything about it. And I think that it's just like she said, I think it's very unfair to the residents who live there because the parking is so congested. They're parking on both sides of the street. It's difficult to move. The noise level when there are concerts, and last week was an exception, is extremely, extremely loud. The sheriff hasn't been around. There's been no enforcement at all. And so it's hard because what I hear you saying tonight, I agree with. We should enforce the codes we have. And that's not happening. And so I think it needs a lot more immediate attention than it's getting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional public comment?
Make it a little smaller so it's all on there. Make it a little smaller. Okay. My name is Ed White. I live in the Hammock Marine Land Acres, 27 Ocean Street. Chairman Dance, Commissioners. I am in a little bit of a conundrum. By the way, I'm also on the board of the HCA, although tonight I'm speaking as a resident, not for the board. I'm a bit of a conundrum because my wife and I thoroughly enjoy outdoor live music, as is happening in the Hammock at several businesses. We love it. We go probably almost once a week. But on the other hand, we also love the quality life that the codes, the rules, and the regulations that exist provide us in the hammock. And some of our neighbors are losing a bit of their quality of life in terms of the quiet and so forth that they're used to because of the loud music. So I'm here to say that if you had to make a decision between me listening to music and their quality of life, you should always go to their quality of life. But I think we can do both, and there are solutions out there. So what I'm doing here is, this is not something that I am endorsing. This is just an example of something I found on the internet in a 5-minute search. And this is the story of a place called Guanabanas in Jupiter, Florida, Jupiter Inlet. Guanabanas is a restaurant that prides itself on a beautiful tropical environment, good food, good drinks, and live music. But there was trouble in paradise. The live music was creating decibel levels that were over the limits of Palm Beach County, and the neighbors were bothered by it. Sound familiar? Guanabanas went and found a solution from a company, I don't need to say the company name, that met the challenge to lower the sound outside the place of business, but also keep the aesthetics of their beautiful tropical environment. The solution they had was something they hung on the fence they already had, and they hung on the stage walls of the little stage they had for live music. Once they did this, the live music is now in full force, and they say they haven't gotten a call since they did this. Now, this is a fairly reasonable solution, and I'm sure there's other solutions like this. My point of telling the story of Guanabanas is that if you will hold people to the rules that we have, there are solutions for them to provide an environment where I can go listen to live music that I love, and the residents won't be encumbered with the excess noise that ruins their quality of life. And I'm sure there's solutions like this for parking and the other issues that are coming up too. We just have to work towards them and hold the businesses to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Come on up. Love it.
Okay, my name is Michelle Sloat, and I live at 86 Hernandez Avenue in the Hammock. The closest access road to my home is 17th Street, which is where the Bronx Pizza and the other new establishment has come in. For me to go to work, that is the way I would usually like to leave and come home. My main concern is when they're both open, or if one's having an event, the traffic to get onto 17th Street has been unpassable. Coming off of a 50-mile-an-hour road to turn onto the street to go home is dangerous to my well-being and anybody playing in the neighborhood. There have been times that I've had to stop, back up, and try to get out of the street because you can't even get down 17th Street. They've added new no parking signs out in front of the Bronx Pizza and the other establishment that somehow get knocked down during special events, and people still continue to park out on the main street so you can't see to get out onto A1A. So besides just the music, I'm afraid if there was an emergency vehicle could not get down the street to our neighborhood. The children trying to ride their bikes have no street to ride their bikes anymore. It's just cars parked all along 17th Street on both sides, usually not even passable, or very slim little area to get through. I know the signs out on the main road are an effort to try and make it better, but nobody's enforcing that. So people are still parking out there, or the signs, I guess, just somehow come out of the ground during special events. So my concern is the safety of the kids that live in the neighborhood, the parking up and down the street, the parking out on A1A. The music I can live with to some extent, but it is still supposed to be a neighborhood that I absolutely love living in. I'm not really happy with the new lot that they've cleared now, saying that it's going to be a parking lot. They've torn down the trees, and people have put some ugly signs about what kind of bar is going in there next. So I think someone really needs to come out and take a look at what's going on in our area, because they're ruining that little strip of area. And I have many friends that just absolutely love coming down, visiting that area, because they say this is what St. Augustine used to be, but it's gone. Don't let that happen, please, in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Welcome.
My name is Robert Sprouse, and unlike Leah, I actually am here to complain about what's been happening in the hammocks. I live literally right next door to the Bronx House Pizza. His behavior and treatment of that, as well as his customers, has put the safety of myself and my 2 children that are back there in jeopardy. I've had intoxicated people on my property. I've had people yelling into my backyard. They're literally right up to my line. We were having a family cookout, and there were some people yelling into our backyard. Made me feel very unsafe. I've had people knocking on my door at 8 o'clock at night asking if they could park on my property. They are very lucky I'm one of the few people up there that does not own a weapon, because I guarantee you they knocked on any other door, there would be different results. On top of that, I've had people parking in my lot without permission and parking across the street in a vacant lot, which last time I checked the county ordinance is not allowed. I do know that he is now telling his employees to park back there to try to free up parking spaces too. So this, again, his solution, I have talked with him on numerous occasions. I've gone into the restaurant to complain about all this. His solution each and every time is, well, you have every right to call the sheriff's office or in tow trucks. I have done that, but honestly, our sheriff's office has way more pressing matters to deal with than a noisy neighbor, really. I do think that he needs to be held accountable. I think that all the businesses need to be held accountable. You know, when I moved there 7 years ago, it was for the peace and quiet and the beauty. And quite frankly, most of that is gone now. You know, again, I can't let my children play in the street because there's people driving around. We've had people that have run over our cable and internet boxes. Spectrum, in one of their rare feats of, you know, customer service, actually responded the next day and got that fixed. So I'm grateful to them. But again, he has shown to be an irresponsible business owner, not willing to work with the community, not telling us when special events are happening. On one hand, the Vanilla Ice concert was great because it was, you know, a charity event. But again, we were not notified of this event. I come home finding police and unable to get down my own road. To kind of just back up some of the points that have been said, there's no communication, no follow through. And, you know, again, I just would like something done. I would like to know that the residents of the hammocks are protected and that the codes are being enforced and people are being held accountable as they should be. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm William Snyder. I live 108 Sanchez Avenue, directly behind the Bronx House Pizza. I have a sound level app on my iPhone where I can check the sound levels. And on Friday and Saturday nights, they have live entertainment. And thank goodness they didn't this past weekend. I don't know why. Anyway, I've obtained readings of 90 decibels of sound numerous times, and this is way above the maximum allowed level, according to the ordinances. It's so loud, I cannot have guests over my home on the weekends and have a conversation over the level of the sound coming from the Bronx House. I love music myself. I am a musician, and I have performed many times at the Hammock Wine and Cheese, which is now called the Bartlett's, and is next door to the Bronx House. they seem to recognize that there are residential properties behind them, and they keep the sound level at a minimum level. I can deal with that. Well below the allowable level, which I appreciate. Also, there's parking congestion, a real congestion problem along Sanchez Avenue. And there are numerous times they are parked on both sides of Sanchez Avenue, and I have problems getting into access to my property. And I hope maybe something could be done about this. Thank you for your consideration.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Anybody else for public comment? All right, we'll close public comment and come back to the commissioners for their final comments. Commissioner Hanson.
To say that I'm alarmed over what's going on over in my district would be a small talk. There just doesn't seem to be anything we can do. We've talked to the sheriff. I'm worried. I didn't know about the clear cutting of that lot. They can't do that, can they, Adam? I didn't know they could do that. I thought they had to get a permit to do that.
Adam Engel, Growth Management Director. I think we heard a couple of things. To my knowledge, it hasn't been clear cut. I've
Yeah,
got
I don't know. I
pictures of
didn't
that.
see
It's been underbrushed, but
I was out. I was going to say I was out there this weekend. I didn't see it.
tree removal is something different. Sounds like we've gotten some complaints here tonight. So I've also heard about parking, that was something new that we hadn't talked about before when we met with representatives of HCA prior to tonight's meeting. And we heard about employee parking tonight, which was not raised previously. So
I think we've got to do something. And I think it's within our authority.
It is.
To fine them or shut them down or something. We got to do something. We got to send a message.
We'll look into the complaints tomorrow.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
No, I was thinking just in general, because there is a lot of business down there and they all play music. I don't know if it's in our maybe best interest to look at maybe, determining how you can have like an overlay on the music altogether, because it's just going to continue to be a problem, particularly if at some point that dry marina comes in or anything like that. I'm not so sure that the noise ordinance is going to always be enforced. And maybe since they're so close to residential, and this just doesn't apply down there, but anytime you have commercial abutting residential that has the potential to have music and things like that, maybe there is something that we can do as a board.
Well, Mr. White brings up a good
overlay.
point that there are solutions out there.
Yeah.
But you can't force them to do it. But if we get obnoxious enough about
music at
fining
all.
and moving people, you force them to find a solution if they want to have live music.
And I just think maybe you start to look at, allowing, what are the overlays you can do on commercial that has music, particularly that close to residential. So something to look at. For my commission update, I'm going to piggyback off Al Hadid over there and have my Oscars moment. I want to thank you so much for, I want to first start by thanking Jonathan Lord for Cattleman's Hall. We were successful in surviving veto, and thanking this board for supporting that project, and thanking Holly Albanese for tolerating me every time I told her to change the form that went to the state. And I'm grateful that we got that project, and I think it's going to be beautiful, and to know that we're supporting our ranchers and farmers and giving them much needed improvements, while also ensuring that we meet state needs for having the proper capacity for special needs during hurricanes. Amazing. And then I'm looking forward to having actual space for 4-H and FFA children to have additional barns to possibly raise cattle and stuff that they can't raise at home, the kids in Palm Coast. So that entire project, I think, is going to be very well received. So I just want to thank everybody for that, and for Penny Buckles, who reached out to me to kick off that ask. So that's it. I want to thank everybody up here for it.
And
I'm glad
bathrooms
we
in the
got it.
building.
It started with a bathroom. Imagine asking for a bathroom in a building. Penny Buckles said, we just need a bathroom. And then the FFA and 4-H children, there's no space for them. There's so many children in the project. And it just kind of morphed with Jonathan and Lord needing a project. And we just kind of married that. And I thought everybody looked at me like we were crazy. but it stuck. And I'm glad the state felt the same way, that it was a need and it's been fulfilled. So looking forward to that.
Very good. Commissioner Sullivan.
Yeah, just this morning's ceremony just brought back a lot of memories. When I was running for office the first time in 2016, before the election, we had Matthew hit. And we've been kind of dealing with hurricanes and the beach ever since. So this morning was a real milestone. And so thanks to Al and a whole bunch of other people who have worked on the beaches and getting it done, because I do think it is a milestone day that we've got the Army Corps program started, which is a permanent fix to the beaches, not the temporary ones we've been doing for the last 8 years. So just thanks to everybody on that. That's it.
Commissioner Ryan.
Certainly wanted to echo those same thoughts for getting this project over the finish line, and again, a special call out to Mr. Hadid for all of the work that he's done over these many years. And it wouldn't have happened if he didn't take the personal initiative and interest that he did over the years. So really appreciate that. Well deserved, and Congressman Walsh was very right in recognizing him that way. I did want to bring up one other item. Earlier in the meeting, Dave Eckert and Steve Davis made some comments about possible another way to think about this MSBU. And full disclosure, over the weekend, they shared their thoughts with me. And they also shared a document with me that was basically suggestions on how we might redirect the discussion around MSBUs and how we can think about future funding our beach renourishment and dune maintenance programs. And in essence, I think to kind of sum it up, what their suggestion is to consider a separate MSBU that would just cover the northern 10 miles of the barrier island, and it would only be the unincorporated area that we would be talking about. So what that would do in essence is it would focus on phase 3 and 4, which we don't have funding for, as we know. I know there's a lot of work that has to be done with engineering and studies and the hard bottom and all that stuff. That's not my area of expertise, but the logic of their suggestions on a possible another way to look at the MSPU, quite frankly, it's changed my thinking to the fact that it can be achievable and hopefully maybe within this year. So I think they have a viable suggestion. A couple other things, I just have some notes here. Their suggestion that 10-mile area equates to, as they said, about 7,000 parcels, but not every one of those parcels have structure on them. A lot of them are vacant or part of the golf course, and the total housing units on it comes to, by my notes here, about 5,700 units, and of that, almost 50% of them are within the homeowners associations, and so if you think about it, we would be negotiating and working with a smaller pool of people, if you will, or parties to negotiate with, and even if you took the 7,000 parcels in that whole segment, that's a small enough manageable group that you could actually go direct to. And I think that's part of their suggestions is if we developed a package of how your parcel would be assessed, we could go to every one of them directly and get, a sign off as I think Mr. Eckert said, or at least an opinion on it, which would be a lot better data and more information than what the consultants provided us, which was, a survey of 900 people, I think it was, whatever the number was. It wasn't, it certainly wasn't that. I think that would answer some of our concerns there. Bottom line is, I'm hoping maybe that you would, you other commissioners would get a hold of that document and talk with Mr. Davis and Mr. Eckert. And if you like what you hear and you want to take another look at it, maybe we can redirect staff to pull it apart and go to the next step with it if that's a possibility. So anyway, I would encourage that you think about that. So, thanks.
All right. Just a few lists. We talked about our requested projects. It's interesting how perception, right? I got a call from the radio station and they wanted quotes on how disappointed we were on the veto list, and I quickly turned that around to say how thankful we were for what we got. And we were adequately warned by Speaker Renner that they were cutting back on member projects, and we were not going to get everything that we had requested. Of course, it didn't match our top priority being economic development didn't necessarily get filled, but I do want to make sure that, the message is that we appreciate the support we've had from Speaker Renner and Senator Hudson. And, and we've got challenges. We've been, right, we've been granted some interesting buildings and expansion, but we've got challenges now and to keep the electric going and everything. I took advantage of meeting with Flagler Beach Commissioner Scott Spradley on Saturday for his little mini town hall he has in his office. It was a really good conversation with Flagler Beach residents on their concerns on the assessment, and just wanted to relay that the people are willing to have good, open, honest conversations, and they're listening. And we haven't figured it all out yet, and that's what I told them. I said, we're in the beginning process of this. Today, just want to, tonight's meeting really encapsulates my frustration with our development process, our land development code, and what we have in front of us. With the comprehensive plan and our land development code rewrites coming up, we have an opportunity to make a transformational shift in how we do business and how we develop. And I just want to reiterate that, we can't, right? We talk about a purpose statement, and the purpose statement is on the Natural Resource Protection, Article 6 is about avoidance and minimization of natural resources, try to protect those. But the code's not backing it up. And what I've been working with staff on is on the tree protection standards is to be able to have elements that can be backed up, that back up that statement. It's kind of like a mission and vision statement for a corporation. That statement in Section 6 is stating the importance to us of natural resources, tree canopy, wetlands, water quality. All those things are important. And on the early stages of designs coming into us, we have to make the applicants aware of that importance so they come to us prepared to demonstrate avoidance and minimization. I think the new tree ordinance helps reinforce that. It mandates surveys, it mandates mitigation, and it gives, like today's conundrum was with the wetlands, it actually gives the applicant the resources to preserve wetlands by using those credits toward other trees that are unavoidable. Some trees have to be removed. but you place a priority on importance of certain trees in certain areas, but also credit to wetlands so that they can be preserved. That's something that we don't have, that we couldn't utilize tonight in our back pocket. I'm just looking forward to those additional conversations. I think it's important. It's a hard one on a commercial corridor like where this project was. Unfortunately, have to agree with the engineer on some of the points that are made. DOT didn't do us any favors by creating that berm along the side. You'll see it in different areas where road infrastructure has set a standard, and then that forces everybody else to follow that standard because they have to be above. And unfortunately, we've seen that up and down 100. The amount of fill it takes to be able to develop in those areas, those don't mix with saving trees. So we have to identify, all right, we're going to identify the largest canopy trees and ask the applicant to prioritize saving those. And hopefully we can maintain some canopy. Really, that's all. Great conversation tonight. With that, motion to adjourn. And second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. He's not behind that one.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
There's no repercussion.
It falls back on the property owner.